Let's begin with a moment of silence, please, and reflection. Okay, thank you very, very much. For those that may be attending for the first time, in that corner of the room on the table are some documents pertaining to the meeting, and help yourself. Things such as a copy of the agenda and so forth would be there. If you cannot hear for whatever reason, if you raise your hand, I'll try to get the microphones and so forth in the position they need to be so everybody can hear. And we'll officially call the meeting to order, our regular monthly meeting, and welcome all of you for being here, taking your valuable time to give input and consideration for what goes on at Holden Beach. So number 3 on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. Let's stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the republic which is the nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're on number 4, consideration of approving the agenda as presented by the clerk. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimously approved. We'll move to number 6, consideration of the minutes for February 27, March 13, March 18. Is there a motion?
Wait, we missed 5.
Conflict of interest, all right. Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, I forgot to get by you.
Part 6, Rule 13E of the 2024 Rules of Procedure requires members to disclose any potential conflicts of interest. Please state if you have any potential conflicts. Mayor Holden.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Myers.
No conflicts.
Commissioner Smith.
No.
Commissioner Thomas.
No.
Commissioner Dyer.
No.
And Commissioner Parkman.
No.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move to number 6, consideration of the minutes, February 27, March 13, March 18th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Unanimously approved as presented. We're on number 7, public comments. I have a list of those that have signed up. And the first person signed up is John Woods. You will come forth, give us your name and address, and speak to an agenda item. Later on, you'll be given an opportunity to speak about anything, but right now it's an agenda item only, and those that have signed up. Is there anybody that thought they had or whatever that has not? Anybody have a problem with somebody signing up now?
No.
Come sign this while he's speaking.
Okay. My name is John Woods, and I live at 159 Ocean Boulevard East, and completely support the town's application for the North Carolina Resiliency Program, phases 1 and 2. Along a similar line, residents of Seaside and Money River are attempting to get the North Carolina Department of Transportation to reinstate the engineered swale designed by East Coast Engineering and installed in 2016 as part of the stormwater plan for the west parking lot construction at 162. Gil Gilliland of 1633 Ocean Boulevard East is attempting to coordinate an on-island meeting between April 23rd and 28th with the DOT to review the latest response, declining help. The person that previously dealt with the DOT shared these observations. The DOT will only respond to facts on paper by a North Carolina engineering firm, and requests from private citizens are viewed more favorably if the local municipality is included and in favor. For the past few months, Bill has been in communication with Chris Clemens about public works, and he is very familiar with the site. His quote to Gil was, "They didn't ask him about removing the swale, and if they had, he would have told them it was the state. But they didn't. He wasn't brought into the planning and execution process. We request the commissioners and town government make Chris Clemens or any other suitable town representative available to attend a meeting with the DOT on island should occur.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Next person, Keith Smith.
Hey, good evening. To discuss item number 14. Good evening. My name is Keith Smith. I'm now a candidate for the town on the Board of Commissioners, and I live at 105 Durham Street. I would like to reiterate the need for boat parking plans for Block Q. With over 750 lots with a current dock in some form or fashion, we need to maintain the amount of boat parking available for the property owners and renters of Holden Beach. The boat landing is not only used by residents and renters, but the county residents as well. And if they're using the parking spaces, that will adversely affect the property owners and renters' availability. While we can say that they are not a problem, they do contribute to the use of the available boat parking spots. With regards to the closed session, it would be good for you to discuss if Christianity is the only religion that you want to exclude from your current meetings. Since karma is only rooted in Hinduism and Buddhism and was referenced in a recent meeting, and since I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ, I would like for him to receive equal time from this Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Joe Utley. Afternoon, sir.
My name is Joe Utley. I live on the mainland. I'll pause so you can hear some boo. Okay. My concern is handicap parking. With the addition of the bathrooms at 114 handicap area, we lost 2 parking spaces. I'm asking that you give consideration to making Quinton with 3 spaces there, zone H51, into handicap. Would you please consider? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Utley. Becky Green.
Becky Green, 115 Sunshine Lane. I'm going to speak on the pier. I just want to say that I am very frustrated with all the misinformation circulating by Keith Smith's website, Holden Beach Happenings, saying that the 3 commissioners are against a new pier, when what they are really doing is getting the facts to make an informed decision, or better yet, the facts for the taxpayers to make an informed decision. And I also want to say that I do not support parking on Block Q.
Thank you. Peter Freer.
Peter Freer, 198 Brunswick Avenue West. I too am a little confused. I'm looking at a Facebook page by Keith Smith, the administrator, and it has a sign that says Block Q Holden Beach Town Hall meeting at 5 p.m. I assume that was authorized by somebody sitting up here, but I guess not. The other thing I'd like to talk about is Block Q parking. I think parking on the perimeter, as it has been for a long time, is more than sufficient. I don't want to see the Block Q green space paved over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freer. Mr. Williams.
My name is Ryan Williams. I live in Supply right here off the island. My family has a house over here on the island. We've had one since probably 1970. Many of the new board here may not know, but I've been trying to get a boat ramp probably for 15 years or so at least. And when Lot Q was purchased, it was the intent at that time to use it for boat ramp parking. And there was some debate over how or what should be included. After the meeting, the first meeting of the new board, when they took the plans off and decided to start over, I should say, everything, I guess, at this point is still open. I spoke with you, Rick, and I gave my word that I'd find a solution to work together. I've done that. February 21st, 2024, Wildlife passed a proposal to build a boat ramp on the main. They've done their economic impact study. They can tell you what the return is for the boat owners, taxpayers on this island, on the mainland. They got it down to a science. It took them less than 30 days. It's the largest need in the state of North Carolina for boat ramp parking. It's a fact. There's no other need anywhere, any greater. And in fact, the plan has all the way up to somewhere between 5.9 million is what they're prepared to spend to add another 98 spots. The only thing I'm asking is just for some cooperation for the town to be involved and try to make that happen. It is yet to pass. It's supposed to come up next time, but it is something that the town should support, even though that it's not on the island. It benefits the town and the entire community. Also, I would like to ask to at least keep the parking somewhat the way it is currently, not to make the situation worse. Those parking spots around the perimeter are not included in the 15 that's underneath the bridge. The wildlife is open to anything that y'all can come up with, but the door keeps getting slammed in their face. And they're more than willing to talk any option. I might add, this plan does not involve one single dollar so far from Holden Beach or the county. I'm a man of my word. Keep yours.
Thank you, Captain Williams. Did I fail to call any name that you think that you signed up? If not, we'll consider this part of the agenda complete. And move to number 8. Ms. Ferguson?
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask our representatives from HDR, Will and Bill, to come forward as I start the preamble here.
Did you take one?
Oh.
Wait. I'm sorry. We were just passing these out. You would take one and pass it down so everyone can have a copy of what he's giving out. Excuse me, Christy.
You're good. So at the March meeting, you guys voted, based on the preliminary draft report of the structural analysis of the pier to, move away from the repair option as, recommended by HDR and move to a rebuild option only. They have some follow-up questions in order to proceed with their plan, which I've included in the memo. Those include trying to figure out if you guys want any structures over the actual pier proper itself, any use of vehicles on the pier, and then timber versus concrete. And they also need to have some discussion for their report for their economic analysis regarding the seasons, time periods, and if you want to exclude the summer season as you move towards any construction windows. Additionally, they provided some supplemental information that was also given to the public, but it's their revised scope that just talks about the rebuild option only with the decreased price tag that comes along with abandoning the repair option. And they gave you their final structural report that came as a supplement, the entire report. So I will turn it over for discussion with them. Please be aware that my recommendation down at the bottom, that you guys will also need to approve that new contract if you're moving forward. So that will be a part of that motion if someone chooses to make that, to approve the new contract with the town manager able to do the paperwork that goes along with that. You guys go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, board, staff, appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to y'all again about this. Before we launch into going on over the questions as mentioned, we thought we would just give a quick breakdown over some of the details behind those questions, just set the stage and start the discussions off on an informed foot. So starting with the question between timber, hybrid, or concrete, with hybrid being a mix of timber and concrete. So just basically with the cost estimates jumping out, you're going to be expecting right around a 2 to 3 times increase from each upgrade in the structure material. So, 2 to 3 from timber to hybrid, and then another 2 to 3 from hybrid to full concrete. And we formed that just off of recent piers that we found built in recent years. That's obviously a high level estimate. It's subject to change based off of project, but just in general, that's about what we've seen from a pricing standpoint between those different levels of materials. So going into the benefits of why you'd want to consider moving into a concrete, considering you're off the bat jumping 2 to 3 times in the construction cost. Just starting out with the constructability, we're going to have more of a drivability with the precast concrete piles. So what that's going to relate to is we're not going to have as much of an issue with potential splitting when you're driving that timber pile. You're having the impact at the top of the pile. It could cause some splitting or issues with the top of the wood. That's not an issue with concrete as much. Similarly, you're able to drive that pile further deeper, excuse me. So with a deeper pile, you're going to have more structural security. So that's going to provide that stability, but also it's going to reduce the need for additional bracing and other kind of support members that would be necessary for a timber design. So we also are going to note that the tolerances, if you go to Home Depot, you get a long board of wood that's usually not going to be straight. It's going to have a little bit of warping in it. Same principle with piles. So you're not going to have that with the concrete. And additionally, there's a savings in potential hazards. So let's say there's a pile from a past installation years back that is still sitting in the water, which I think we have maybe like a half dozen that are known. If we're driving a pile, that pile can make contact with one of those existing piles that are still in the ground, and that can cause issues with either the pile not reaching its full depth or with the impact splitting the pile underneath. Okay, and then it also will allow a better suitability for a top-down construction. So moving into that top-down construction, excuse me, and then also with the top-down, that's the constructability side. Then on the design side, a hybrid design will give you a more targeted failure point. So when you have, yeah, thank you. So the hybrid design, that's going to be a concrete substructure with a timber superstructure. So that's going to be concrete piles and concrete pile caps, but then the decking and any bracing that might be necessary would be wood. So that's going to be that hybrid between both all concrete, all timber. So when we have a hybrid design, the failure point in that design is going to be the decking superstructure itself, which is the easiest to repair, and it is going to limit the amount of substructural work that will be necessary. That's pretty key because the substructural work is always going to be more expensive than the superstructure. So storm comes through, it'll knock that superstructure off, and instead of it also impacting the substructure, we're still going to have that substructure to work off of to rebuild the pier. That's a very common design currently that municipalities are typically taking for that reasoning. And then also we'll be able to have more of a design control. So with timber, you don't have like a certain storm duration, so a 25-year storm event, 100-year storm event. It's much more difficult to have that sort of engineering design with timber, but with concrete, we're able to have that. So we can actually have a target threshold that we are designing the structure to, as opposed to just designing the structure to the best of the ability, and what happens for storms. And then finally, having concrete or a hybrid design is going to have a much more favorable maintenance expectations. So again, in addition to allowing the top-down maintenance, you're also going to have substructure access. So if you had a full concrete design, you won't be able to get to the substructure to work on it without major repair work. With the timber, you can cut into it, remove it, do anything you need to do with the substructure, and then you're able to move on. So that's a benefit there. And then additionally, it's going to double your service life. So it's a typical timber pile. You're looking anywhere from 25, 30 years on average before you start doing anything like sleeving or additional work to shore up that member. With concrete, you're going to be looking at double that, somewhere around 50, 60 years. And then additionally, you're going to have a much easier time working with the repairs because the methodologies for shoring up a deteriorating concrete member is much more favorable versus timber, where you're limited in what you can do to basically just, putting a sleeve around it or removing it, but concrete will give you more options. So that's going to be the main benefits to the hybrid design or concrete design. And when we talk about top down, so there's a distinction between top down construction and then land out construction. So land out construction is as it sounds, you're starting from the land side and then you're working your way out. But land out does not limit you to top down. You'll be able to do in land out different methodologies such as a standard barge, but also you can do things like a trestle, which is where you build out a temporary structure that the crane and other equipment sits on, and then it does its work, and then you move that trestle down with the crane, so it's not on the structure, but it's next to it. And similarly to a trestle, you can also do a land bridge where you actually build out a spit of land that can support the construction equipment. And then the expectation is that land bridge would either erode away or be removed. But naturally, that's going to be a little bit tougher for permitting side. That's a side note. And then additionally, you would be able to do the top down if the structure supports it. And then when we say top down, that specifically means that you have the equipment on top of the pier structure itself, and then you're working from the top as you are doing the maintenance. So it's a little bit more limiting of a definition. So when we're talking about a top-down consideration, the biggest factor for whether that's feasible or not is going to be the load rate. Whether that structure is going to be able to support the construction equipment. The prime example for why we say that the current design is not rated for a top-down approach is you can just look at the joist spacing as one example. A pedestrian loading for a 2x6 board, which is what's out there, requires a maximum of 24-inch spacing for pedestrian loading. We measured at 30-inch. So the spacing on the joist supports off the bat is 25% too wide for today's pedestrian load rating, let alone construction equipment. So that's one example for why the current design is not determined to be top-down suitable. So with that, we do not currently have a top-down approach as the considered approach. That's going to be due to the wording within the RFQ and then just discussions with the town. We at HDR do not want to get ahead of the town and start assuming design choices. We knew that the timber design would be an alternative either way as the existing conditions. So we're still plugging along on that route, but there's the ability of adding on that hybrid or concrete consideration to it. So while that's happening, we're not losing time in the work. So, if the town were to give guidance on, hey, we would like y'all to consider a hybrid or concrete alternative, that's something that we can easily add. And that's not going to be an issue because currently, if we can get that guidance sooner versus later, in other words, pretty much ASAP, that's not going to affect the timeline of the project. Naturally, there'll be some more hours that'll need to be added in for the work, but the overall timeline itself would not be impacted. We would still be looking at that. I think it's early August 5th, I want to say, project completion date. And we're able to do that because concrete typically is a little bit faster of a design process just because of how that design actually shakes out as compared to timber.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
So right now you're working on the land out versus top down.
Correct. Right now, it'd be a land out, and the preferred methods of construction for a land out is going to be either the trestle or the barge. Neither of which are optimal. But if we can do a top-down design, then certainly a top-down approach would be the recommended methodology for the lifetime of construction.
Do you have an idea of what the cost differential would be for those two options?
Not yet. That would be something that this current project we're working on would serve to find out. That's going to require a full cost estimation, maintenance plan, development, and then cost estimation from the developed maintenance plan from those. So we're not able to get that at this time.
So how can we make a decision if we can't know how much it's going to be one way or the other?
It'll come back to that roughly 2 to 3 times and the initial construction
Yeah,
cost,
okay.
but then, so another
That's
Great.
all I'm looking for, is
Okay,
that, that kind of thing,
Okay.
similar to what you told
Okay.
us on the other.
sir,
Will, you put a ton of stuff out there.
we got more for it too.
Yeah, I know, and then I'm trying to get the fire hose off my face.
Yeah.
And this is one of my concerns about tonight, and I'd like the board to just think about this. This is a lot of information
Certainly.
to just make a decision, and if the other board members think it's worthwhile, we may need to have a sit-down public meeting where we can have a dedicated discussion. What I understand you're telling me, though, is if a wood pier is $4 million, a hybrid is going to be $8 to $12 million.
Ballpark, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And what about a concrete?
Let me interrupt here for a second.
Is that
So,
16 or?
based on some of the recent piers that we've been looking at that have been built, your wooden piers are gonna run, and this is ballpark, and you've got construction cost escalation, material
Mhm.
cost escalation, so, but this is based on just recent history. You've got, wood piers, timber piers running somewhere in the $3,000 to $7,000 a linear foot. So if you're looking at 1,000 foot, that's a very rough ballpark based
Right.
on recent historical data from piers that have been built from Texas to South Carolina to Florida
So
in the last few years.
very rough, we're talking
This is-
3 to
this is
7
very,
million.
Very rough. If you look at a hybrid design, you're looking at roughly 10 to 15.
Earlier, but
I'll tell you, there was a 2023 hybrid 1,050 foot, that was done at Foley Beach, South Carolina. It was replacing a pier that was built in 92, that was timber. The timber, pier was built in, I said 92 for 7.6 million.
adjusted for inflation.
Yeah. And, the hybrid was built in 2023, 1,050 foot for 13 million. So you're looking at somewhere in the $13,000 a linear foot, based on historical data.
And what about the concrete?
Concrete is gonna be more significantly, it's gonna be somewhere in the 20 to 25 range, so you're looking at a significant escalation when you go to concrete. And I will say, in this location, we can drive, timber piles, you can drive concrete piles. Concrete's gonna last longer, concrete substructure is gonna last significantly longer. But, again, we can look at whatever you wanna look at, if we wanna, if you need time to discuss, we don't have to have this right here today, right now.
Right.
We understand that, and Will did probably unload a little bit extra on you here this evening, so I get it.
Yeah,
And are those pedestrian only numbers or are they vehicle?
I can't tell you that right now, because I do not have the design, will know. But I will say, in my history, I've seen, concrete structures, you're typically able to put at least a, emergency vehicle out. So, and I've built top down before, and typically, you build top down, and anything forever, you'll never have a load on the bridge or on the pier, on the structure, any greater than you'd have during the construction on top down, because whatever equipment you put out there is going to be heavier than any vehicle you will ever have.
so again, a lot of information. So if we're looking at building, say, a wood pier, are you telling me the likelihood is that we will be using some floating plant to build it? and the likelihood is we will need floating plant to repair it. Or can we repair from the
It
deck?
depends. You know, I'm not gonna say you can't build a timber pier that will, you know, you can, I'm not saying you cannot build a timber pier that you can't put heavy equipment on, but you know, it's limited to a pedestrian road. I'm just saying, we're saying it's the likelihood of, concrete holding up to that road would be better. But you can, increase your design on the timber pier. The other part of it is you can do timber pier top down. You can, like Will said, you can do the ram bridge, or you can, you can soon work off margins. So there's a number of different ways to look at this. The other part of it is when you go to construction, if you're looking at inland water work, you know, you got an additional cost for that, so you might have a cheaper design for your actual bridge, but the methodology for those guys doing the construction work is going to be might be higher than top-down design. It's not cost more, but you're not going to be in the water, and you know, if you're doing top-down, the only thing that hits the water is the end of the pile. And so you're not going to have the permitting won't be as significant. That would be one of the other methodologies.
And one more point to add to that, you can also do a timber design that's specific to a top-down approach. But to do that, you're gonna have a lot more wood requirement just for all the structural support and everything. So once you start adding in that extra wood requirement, you're getting closer to the cost of a hybrid structure.
You're approaching the higher end, right?
Yeah, the figures that we have for the timber are likely for a pedestrian floating. I mean, I'm not saying they are definitely, but typically if you're doing only timber, you're not planning on to have that heavier equipment. So you can do it, but you're just gonna start driving that cost up, and it's gonna get closer and closer to a concrete amount.
Obviously, the concern here is cost. The mayor has correctly pointed out publicly that he is concerned, and it's a valid concern, that the cost of the pier could be prohibitive for the town. That, to me, you manage your risk by balancing your cost, schedule, and performance. So we have a cost issue. We have probably a schedule issue because many people would like to have that pier out there tomorrow. And then we have performance, which is that longevity and things of that nature. Other things just to consider for our particular situation is our wooden pier has been there for 65, 66 years with some repairs. So I think this requires some thought on what we want to do. I don't know. I have no idea if 10 to 15 million is something the town could take on. And part of the intent of doing this exercise is to have plans and specs so we can go look for funding elsewhere. So I just want to make that point because we are not a huge community, and this is expensive.
You do have to balance it. There's a big level of effort between the timber and the concrete office. So I mean, that might be perfect. The timber might be good. Typically say we don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Exactly, because I'd like to see us deliver a pier for the town. And the wood pier did work for a long time. And if you bought yourself a 30-year project, maybe you could start looking at a concrete pier project in the future and start planning for that type of cost. Anyway, that's all I have to ask for.
I just had a couple questions. It's my understanding that the current pier design, if we were just replace what we had you can't build it top down or bottom out. So then we're getting into a wood pier. I guess I'm trying to figure out, what does it cost to replace what we've got? And if we beefed it up so that you could do top down, is that about the same cost? Should we raise our design standards because the construction costs
So.
are gonna bridge it.
The scope of our current contract, our current project is to determine the cost to duplicate what you have. So we can't sit there right here and say exactly what it's gonna cost to duplicate exactly what you have, or what you have, if you brought it up to today's requirements as far as, gird spacing and this and that Will was talking about. So going from that to a more beefy, design that would, allow more of a top-down approach. Again, we can't really tell you the design, the design cost. We have not done the design yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're under, you got us on board to tell you in August, this is what it's gonna cost to do this, and here's a 30% design. So,
Yeah, it was repair or replace our current, we repair the current one, we replace it with something like for like.
so that's what we're currently at. We have in August, we're gonna tell you, this is how much, this is a preliminary, this is a 30% design and 30, and the cost to do it. And here's a repair option and the cost to do it. Repair option, you all voted to take off the table. So right now, all we have is this is what we're gonna do, a 30% design, similar to what you have out here. So we tighten up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like to replace what we have, has got high construction costs. But if we were to beef it up, we'd end up with a stronger, better pier for not that much more total cost because we get construction efficiencies. Is that fair?
Yes, in the initial construction, you're still gonna have the maintenance side of that, because the part of the concrete, not just to keep selling concrete, just the full information is that there's going to be a break-even point in the long run, like years down the line, where the maintenance from the timber is actually going to cause the overall project to be more expensive than if you did something like a hybrid design. Just off the bat, a reason for that is on timber, you're actually supposed to have inspections here, annual inspections, to look after that timber and see what kind of deterioration's been happening. And then when you're doing anything from like a coating or any kind of sleeving to try and mitigate like boring from animals or barnacles, that should be at most every 5 years, if not less. On a concrete, you're looking at a 7 to 10 year cycle. So you're basically doubling that cycle in addition to having more capabilities to rehab when the issues are found. Like spalding, you can do much more to that with concrete than you would if you had boring issues with timber.
So you keep saying concrete, but I think you're really trying to say it's hybrid, right? Because you're not really trying to tell us that concrete.
Oh, well, yes,
it's hybrid, which is the concrete pipe.
Let me be real clear. We're not trying to sell you anything.
Right. But he keeps saying concrete, but I
Yeah,
think he
so-
really means hybrid.
I
right?
mean-
I'll just take a salesman hat off for a minute. We're not trying to sell you. We're trying to make sure you understand the differences and the different,
Yeah, and to
Yeah.
your point, I could have been a little more clear. I was speaking specifically about the substructure.
Okay.
So like a concrete hybrid and then a full concrete will have the same substructure.
Right.
Concrete. That's what I meant to say, so I apologize.
you're gonna have a wooden deck and rails.
Yep.
Everything below the deck.
Yeah, so I was talking about, because typically in maintenance, the substructure is going to drive most of those costs. So that's what I meant to be talking about. If I got a little unclear there, I apologize. Thank you for
So,
asking.
I mean, I noted it too. It sounds like you're kind of leaning more towards a hybrid than a all concrete just because of access to the substructure.
Yeah, so honestly, going to an all concrete is really going to be dependent on the functionality, such as down in Galveston, they have a roller coaster theme park on a pier. So kind of need concrete for that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any functional requirements for a concrete deck, it's really not necessary, because that timber is going to be it's going to give you everything that you need, and it's going to be easier to replace in the long run. The full concrete is really going to be if you have heavy loadings on it, or you just want to design the heck out of the pier, which that's great. But, you know, if you want to talk about functionality needs, you know, it's cost benefit.
The reality of it is, the concrete here can be damaged by a storm too. So, you know, it's not guarantee here that, you know, if you put a concrete pillar out there, you're gonna get damaged. You know, coming out to the beach is about one that I've been on a number of times, and, it's been damaged by a hurricane. It's very long and very concrete.
So, I guess building on that life, you know, I think we asked for a 30-year all-in.
It's a 30-year.
So, I mean, the thought was that's a total life cycle cost, but if a concrete pier lasts 50 to 60, we're not really getting apples to apples, right? Because we're so.
Correct. I mean, you could get apples to apples by doing on a per year basis, but that's not going to take into consideration of what happens after that 30-year period for the timber. If you're getting past the service life and those pilings have to all be replaced, that's going to basically be a full reconstruction. You know, not 100%, but that's basically what you're doing because you're having to replace those piles. So that's 2 piers of timber for every one of concrete substructure. So it's, I mean, it's the upfront costs versus the lifetime savings. And again, it's, you know, completely understandable if it's just too much to bite off upfront. If you can't get that off the bat, it doesn't matter what the life cycle savings are if you can't get the structure up there.
But, you know, ultimately, to run a life cycle thing for your comparison, if we can do that, and we don't have it right now, because we don't have the time.
We would need guidance on exactly what you guys want us to consider. A consideration could be all timber beefed up for top down. It could be all timber as is, you know, it could be something else from hybrid. You know, all those are different alternatives that are completely valid. We just need guidance on what the board would like us to consider.
I'm interested in what, to begin with, what the most cost-effective approach is. Because I am concerned about the numbers we're kicking around. They're pretty large for this community.
Not small.
Yeah, I mean, we knew a pier was going to cost something. But I don't, you know, we would like to end up with something affordable, which is relative, assuming we have a pier. And some of the things I think about is we may be able to swallow the cost of a wood pier and program out the higher maintenance cost. Understanding it costs more overall, but it's kind of like buying a used car versus a new one. If you can't afford the new car, then it's kind of a moot point. You have to deal with the increased maintenance of a used car and a shorter lifespan.
Exactly.
But this is just my opinion. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks or what staff thinks, or, you know, there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you where I think as of now, which is all concrete is out because we don't need to put a Ferris wheel on it. The concrete with wood is appealing based on, as Rick said, the upfront costs. And I really, my concern is our current contract is just like for like, so you're going to rebuild to our current spec. It's out there.
We're designing.
Current design, yeah. I mean, it just.
We're gonna try to, you know, this design is, probably fine the day that it's done, but it doesn't meet today's design requirements that we have to hold. So we're gonna, you know, follow basically the same footprint that you have out here now, the same rough design with a little bit, with, you know, the more stringent current standards. And that's the objective right here.
Building codes and ADA.
Yeah, I guess I just like, you know, this construction cost difference of rebuilding the way we are is versus.
And but right here, right now, we don't have that because we don't, you know, I can't tell you the construction cost difference, but I don't have it in front.
Kind of a chicken and the egg.
To a degree, you kind of have to bring, if you really want to get a comparison that I consider and tell you with some confidence that this is the way it really is. I'm not going to shoot from the hip, which I'm not going to do. You've got to bring both of them up parallel to a certain point, and you can actually see what you're looking at. And, I don't think you have to go 8 months down the road to do that, but you do have to do a little bit on it. You know, we're not that far around, so I don't want to tell you something I don't know.
And my gut kind of says it's better to just build a nicer wood than the current wood we've got, even if it's incrementally more, but you end up with a better product. And the extra, you save on construction costs. So it's just, I don't know what the numbers are, but that's kind of,
You're replacing a fishing pier with a fishing pier.
but
Right.
the current pier is pedestrian only.
Right.
And
And that's
Right.
fishing.
And now, that's not saying at one point they didn't have a truck out there, which I'm sure they did. But it's not designed for that. So, I mean, we can do that sort of thing. But you're right. I mean, you're looking at a wooden structure to replace a wooden structure.
So if you're replacing the wooden structure that's there now with a wooden structure, how is your maintenance gonna be any different than repairing the structure that's there now? Cause it's wood.
It is wood, but you will have, first off, you'll start with new wood. It'll all be new. It'll be a slightly different design. It will be a slightly more beefy design. You'll have, literally all your fasteners will be new. All your metals will be new. A few different things. But in this case, we're gonna have, perhaps some pilings close together, perhaps pilings with cheaper. Try to beef it up a little bit. So that you're still gonna have the same maintenance procedures that will be required. But the goal would be the duration between the procedures would be less. Would be more.
But if we spend $1 to $3 million repairing a pier, it's gonna have the same maintenance requirements as spending $7 million for the same structure.
Yes, ma'am, but one of the main factors, and there are several main factors, but one of the ones that off the bat is a great case for why the repair of the current pier is not recommended, is that your best case scenario for your piles is they're 25 years old. Your youngest pile is 25 years old. The lifespan for a pile is 25 to 30 years. So what you would be repairing is a pile that's already past its life, and then you're just going to be sleeving it, and then you're going to have, as Bill mentioned, a much reduced cycling between maintenances to where it's just not, it's not very feasible to do that.
I'll compare it with the Cape Fear Memorial. So, the Cape Fear Memorial, you've got.
Yes, sir. It's the bridge going in Holden.
Right, so we've got the bridge, and if you go back 20 years, you're starting to have some more repair cycles. And the repair cycles were scheduled maybe every 10 years. And then as things deteriorate, every 7 years, 8 years, and now we're recently doing a repair that was done because the money was not allocated enough on the previous repair, and it's got into a smaller and smaller gap between the repairs. So I think you'd be looking at roughly the same thing here. You do your repair cycle, but the next repair will come sooner, and the next repair after that will come sooner, because all your materials in the water are deteriorating more rapidly.
So basically, we'd be trying to maintain a car with 300,000 miles on it, keep it running.
That's
Kinda like
part of
that?
it. Now, you can do that. You can certainly do that. But, your repair cycles are gonna come closer and closer.
Right. I understand.
And bigger.
They also are not replacing that bridge because they can't get the funding for it.
Again, I guess I'm old out here. But I watched them build that pier, and I've also watched them repair them. Every time it was done with a truck and a tractor on the pier. So I understand that new engineering guidelines, it's like, you have to make it a little more robust, have a little bit bigger timber, but it definitely needs to be faster and things like that. I just don't, see that, excuse me, I just don't see that not being able to build a wooden pier for fishing. I mean, like you say, we're not gonna put a merry-go-round or anything out there on, it's gonna be fishermen, people. So to over-engineer it, I think is, you know, I think most of what we could maybe even fathom to afford would be just a fishing pier. And my next deal is, you know, you said that you guys have you designed a wooden pier or a concrete pier that's been built?
Have we?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
So which in your previous experience, I mean, was the wooden pier not less expensive to build?
Yes, the wooden pier will be less expensive than concrete. Yes, sir.
That's kind of what.
Yeah, almost
But
every
either
time.
way, whether it's a wooden pier or even a concrete hybrid pier, as you call it, if we have a major hurricane, either one of them could be knocked down. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Again.
A hurricane can knock any
my-
structure down.
My thoughts are is to build a fishing pier, a wooden fishing pier so people can get up there. So,
Matt,
I mean, we can, excuse me. go ahead.
No. To your point, I went down to Cherry Grove and looked, they were repairing their pier, it's wood, they knocked out the center of it, and they had a truck crane out there doing repair. And that's why I was hoping we could get to a point where we could do repairs from the deck. Now, that's a private pier, and when people rolled trucks out on this pier, it's a private pier. Does a public entity get away with doing that? Because, you know, we have I don't know, you know, we have to meet all the OSHA stuff. We can't just, I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but because we are a public entity, do we have to meet other requirements that a private entity may not in how we execute repairs?
I can't speak to the private, but I can speak to the public, and there are certainly building codes that apply specifically to piers, specifically to fishing piers, specifically to public fishing piers, and specifically to public fishing piers that are you know, rated on the coast. So there's definitely design guidelines for all of that. And to your point, sir, about the seeing it before, I saw the pictures myself. I do not doubt you one bit at all. We would not want that liability of
That's my
knowing
point.
that if we signed off on the specs for the maintenance work to be potentially done by a top-down approach, knowing that the rating is not top-down rated, we would be liable for that. So, you know, not only would it be the potential damage, but any health issues that happen from accidents.
So, I'm gonna try to correct this a little bit. We would design it for the load. Okay, design it for the load, so it's not, when we say top down, it's not necessarily top down, construction that you're gonna put a 40-ton crane out there. Or something like that. We're talking about, you know, if you're basically with the design instruction, you've got a dead load and a live load. The live load for this pier is basically a pedestrian traffic is 60 pounds per square foot. That's a requirement. So in this case, you have to increase your load, but you can increase the load to whatever you want. It's not good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think when the guys actually were building it originally, they had, you know, that they had already put the wood down. But then on top of the wood, they put like a pretty thick plywood right where the truck tires were running.
Matted it.
Yeah, basically a mat.
Yeah.
But it was distribute the weight a little more, and it was now you can imagine in 1960 how antiquated that equipment was, but it was functional, and it had just a tractor basically to pull the pilings up on there, and they lifted up and then driven and first jetted to get them in the right direction, and then driven into the ground. And again, it's been there 60 years. I have had some repairs done to it, but there's been a lot of fish on it. So I don't know. I want it to be something that we can afford to do, and something that we can look forward to doing. And, I just don't, I think if we get too far out there, with the design, it's gonna make it to where that won't be. I would rather go in, personally, myself, in honor of Gerald Brown, would like to, see it done reasonably.
Yes, sir.
Do we also need to discuss the 750 versus 1,000 foot? Is that was?
Wait, can we, I still have, okay,
Okay,
I
so-
just want to clarify this. I agree with what you're saying, Rick, so I just want to clarify that the most cost-effective way to build it, and then you're looking to look at the 30-year maintenance, right? Is to do a timber with land out.
If you're looking for the cheapest upfront cost, then yeah, I can't speak if it would be either the barge or the trestle, but that would be one of the methods that you would go about it, and that would be the cheapest upfront initial cost, yes, ma'am.
Because if we tried to do the top-down, which bears more load, I heard you say that was going to be twice as much.
That's for the hybrid specifically, so with the
Yeah,
concrete
if
substructure.
we're talking wood, we don't have that.
Yeah. You know, we can't give you the relative difference between pedestrian loading timber or a top-down timber.
Okay,
that
but
would be-
right now, we in theory only have pedestrian loading because it's a fishing pier, so
Right.
it would be the land out.
Correct. If we were to go with the existing assumptions that we are operating on right now, yes, ma'am.
The least expensive way to build it would be timber with land out.
Correct.
I
Well, yeah,
think that's
either-
what you were saying, right? Yeah.
And,
Don't tear down.
and our risk to that simply is our maintenance costs in the future. Should we have to go replace a pile, we'll probably require a floating plan.
Yes,
So-
and you run into the same issues that you're having now, and there's always the specter of if you would need to do a major repair for the timber that would require, changing out piles, pulling up the decking, that's going to be a very large cost, which is going to make it less desirable to go through with that effort. So it kind of reduces the likelihood that the maintenance will actually occur.
But how do you perform that maintenance? It's not, we're not directing how to make.
Right.
Maintenance is gonna get performed how. the
Contractor
maintenance
will
department
determine.
Determines what contractor best looks like.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious if we're close to the joint decision or not. I mean,
So they're looking for some direction. Are we ready to come to consensus on what we want to tell them the direction is on this part of it?
But
Timber, hybrid, concrete?
Hybrid concrete's just financially for the town of Holden Beach, I believe, out of reach. I believe, as you alluded to, Tracy, the least expensive construction, again, it's gonna be people on the pier.
Yeah.
And when the big water comes, it's not gonna matter what we build, it's gonna wash it away. As far as the maintenance and that sort of stuff, it's the last time Gil repaired this pier was probably 15 or 20 years ago. Like
2000.
25 years ago, and it's still standing strong. From where the pier goes up and out, is still in reasonable condition now. From the land out to that where it raises up is terrible. So again, whatever is the most economically feasible and doable for the town taxpayers of Holden Beach, and again, as you stated, go out once we figure out what's going on and see if we can get some assistance in funding.
Right.
It would make a wonderful federal, we make it a veterans pier. I mean, there's a lot of angles that I think with our professional grant getter that we could maybe offset some of this for the town of Holden Beach. But again, that would be, again, in my heart, the only way that I see that we could come together as both financially and what we want to see is the end game. We can do that together.
Rick, I tend to agree with you 100%. It sounds to me what we're saying is we want to build a like-kind pier, timber, to today's code, in the most economical fashion, so we're not going to try to put a 40-ton truck crane out there to maintain it. And I would suggest also, we've asked for a 750-foot and then a 250-foot extension. Want to make sure we get a T-head on that extension. Does that sound like what we're looking at?
Yes, sir, and again, to ensure the feasibility of it, they could design it to where it could be 750. And then we can take a deep breath and then a few more years, add that other 200
Exactly.
feet with man, it used to be nice out there. I mean, it had a little covered area and stuff, and you could fish all night and stuff. That really made for better fishing because you were far enough out there to catch the bigger game.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if, I think that, I agree with everything you said, but I'm wondering if we really just want to go with 1,000, because do we want to, they can't really fish on 750, right?
No, well, when kids are involved, yeah, they can. But for
Can
the
they
people-
catch or do they just fish?
They're fishing, yes, sir. But for the people that will come from miles around to fish on our pier.
Yeah.
Spend money as far as our economic development and economical resources coming in. The 1,000-foot would be the best option. I think it would be the best
Yeah.
to get more money into our community as a whole.
And again, that's building what was there, right?
1,000
What
foot,
was
yeah.
there before some of
Before
it got
flood.
washed away. So I'm kind of leaning toward we should direct them for the
You're
1,000.
not gonna get any argument.
Okay.
All right. I can go there. The only reason I had the 750-foot option, so we could maybe eat the elephant in 2 bites. But if that's the board's desire, I can go along with that.
Well, we can see, and if the bite is too big,
Right.
then we can.
Then
use
roll
we
it
can
back.
roll it back.
I'll go
Yes,
there
sir.
with you. Yeah.
But it's a fact. My last trip to the North Carolina Economic Development Commission meeting last year, that they said that a fishing pier generated $2 million worth of revenue for the general area. Plus the fact that, we're a family beach and we've got that, even though we don't want, people over here all the time, we've got, that beach is everybody's. So I think we can't make it any longer. Like a little matter. So that's my, yes, sir, I agree
Yeah,
with you. If we
so-
can go with that, Tracy and
Okay.
Rick and Tom
Yeah.
and Paige, I think that would be the direction we'd like for you guys to maybe try.
I was just gonna say, if you try to do this piecemeal, with the 750 and then come back with the 250 more,
Get it started up
you're
again.
looking at,
More mob
well,
cost.
you're looking at mob costs, you're looking at increased design costs, because we're gonna have a way to scab on the 250. And you're gonna get a smoother and a better product long term, I think, if you went.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
If you were gonna go 1,000, you would actually save money in the long run, right?
Sold.
So we're saying timber, land out, 1,000 feet,
T-head on the
T on the
end.
end.
T on the end.
excuse me 1 second, Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Evans has something here.
Mr. Evans, would you like to add something?
Taller,
Taller?
taller,
Taller.
taller.
How much?
Enough that it's like the one that, not as tall as the one at Oak Island, but tall enough that it doesn't catch everything.
You guys are doing a modeling or whatever, and you're going to figure out how high it has to be to not have the waves looking at it.
Right. With the sea level rise included and all the considerations.
Okay.
All right. What other questions do you have?
So first of all, is the direction clear? Do we need to vote on anything? Or are
I
we
think we
good?
had
Consensus?
I think, can we do it on consensus?
Okay.
I have one question. So, is there still the alternative for the not 250 or only considering it as 1,000 and then that's
1,000.
it?
Straight to 1,000.
1,000.
Okay, perfect.
And there's no way possible to use any of the existing that's out there now, period.
No, sir. We would not recommend reusing anything that's out there right now. It is all at the end of its lifespan. And you're going to be building off of something that's already deteriorated at the end of its lifespan.
All right, well, maybe we can sell some of that as historic.
Yeah.
something.
No, it's not hazardous material. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
So, y'all hold on to your chairs. I think we've got 1, 2, and 3 answered, right? We're good? Y'all have your answers for 1, 2, and 3 in the
Yes, ma'am.
memo? Okay, so I think they just need our construction windows, and then we can approve the contract if that's where we're going. And I
Mhm.
think you guys, that's the answer to your question, that you've done everything.
So
They asked
that,
a
yeah,
question
do we want to avoid summer construction?
Oh, by all means, do it.
Well, I
Well,
know, but
it's
it might go over the summer cycle depending on when and that would impact the cost if they had
Yeah.
to come back. and
More
forth.
mow, demo
And I
costs
said,
if you had to come back.
actually, so I
Yeah.
would say just do it and
Let's
get
get
it
it
over with.
done.
We're only closing the Pier parking lot, you know, those 82 spots. It's not like there's not other
Do we
spots.
have to close the entire?
That's my question.
Maybe
Can we
not.
leave the walkway open? Yeah.
We don't need this information, right?
Okay. But while we're on a roll, maybe we.
Yeah, really. You need to go with
Start
this.
from break.
Trust me,
You're
you
epic.
don't want to come back.
Yeah, your
The stars have
economic
aligned
guy
here. You gotta-
wanted it in the minutes when he
Right.
talked about it, so that's why I was gonna go and have them.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yes, yes. And just keep in mind the whole permitting timeline as well. Just want to,
Okay.
We, you know, when
Note that.
we get down to it, we could, we come up with a construction plan, we could, put the timeline. and get the schedule up.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Chrissy, will we have to permit it since we're replacing it? I mean,
Well, currently, our permit for CAMA is non-existent because the timeline expired and we had to figure out whether we were rebuilding or, I'll let Tim answer.
Mr. Evans, you speak to that.
Well, it was a repair permit, so it was
Yeah.
only good for 90 days to get started and then, and you guys know, you're gonna have to have a major permit out there, so y'all gonna be handling those environmental permits on your end. We're not gonna be getting it, you'll be out operating as our, or whoever you get, will be operating as the town's representative to get those permits. We can assist.
Right.
But that's where you're at. And you wanna begin, based off of the information you have, you wanna begin with 1,000 feet. Okay, now we've set the stage by getting a repair permit, but already acknowledged there was an additional 250 in there. Should be a forward.
Okay, so did we have consensus that we don't want them to come back twice and they can just continue on? Rick and Paige?
May I? I think what I heard is you need to do the design work and figure out what the construction time is, and then we can figure out if you're gonna bridge the summertime and is that what I heard?
Do it.
I agree.
All right, well then, let's just give them that
Okay.
direction
All right.
Oh, wait,
if we have consensus.
Yes, ma'am.
we do have to vote on the contract though.
Yeah, I know, we're
Yeah,
not getting
okay,
there yet.
okay.
So I make a motion to approve the contract and to instruct the staff to execute it.
I'll second that motion.
I have a question. Are you including demolition in that?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Then the construction contract,
We're gonna have to have a cost of what it's gonna cost to tear it down.
we can provide that. We don't have that cost right now, so we can certainly provide that. And that can be, that can be as part of the actual construction contract, or you can have it done on a separate contract. We can price that out and give you the best option. Will it not be in the same footprint? The pier will be in the same footprint. It should be, you've got that strip of land and, that's the best spot for it.
our structures did mention that potentially offsetting it by like 10 feet, just so we're not on the same pile line, might be something to do, but yes, it'll be in that same area. So especially with that, the pier building not being there, it'll be very, much more efficient at setting that design up for one cohesive design in that area.
You got the whole lot. We move it the whole lot.
Yeah, and I believe the cost reestimate should cover demolition. So that demolition would have been included in our final deliverable cost estimate. Yes, ma'am.
Cool.
Motion?
We made a motion
You've
and
got a
it was
motion.
second.
Um, Madam Interim Town Manager,
Yes, sir.
would you make an attempt to summarize what has been discussed here? Because I have a concern that all this seems to be very positive, which is great. But we don't want news media to pick up that we're moving forward for building a pier.
That's correct.
So
So-
if you will just summarize what all this means.
Sure. Initially, HDR was contracted by the town to explore both a repair and a rebuild option. At the last board meeting, you guys moved away from repair. The contract that you're agreeing to takes it down from the original cost that had both options in it, which was a number that was a 250 number down to tonight's, it was 258.70 to tonight's number that's before you, which is 198,620. The things you discussed tonight is that you're gonna go with timber only, that you are not gonna put a load on it to go top down, you're gonna build land out, and that you're gonna have a T structure on the end of it and instruct them to go the full 1,000 feet for the design, and not to build a pier starting tomorrow.
Noted.
Okay, everybody understand the motion?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those say no. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Chief Dixon?
Good evening. Short, sweet, and to the point. We are picking up summertime, seeing the crowds even more than we were last month. Everybody's seeing them too. This weekend is Easter weekend, so we know we're gonna have a lot of people coming in. So we're just gonna ask everyone to slow down, drive careful. Next weekend is the festival, but no, it's not. I'm lying to you. It's Day at the Docks, not Festival by the Sea. Day at the Docks, so there's gonna be another huge crowd for that one. So the next 2 weekends are gonna be busy for us. And that's kind of what we got going on. I'll give a couple of short public service announcements that I jotted down. And it doesn't really apply to this crowd here because I know all of you follow the rules, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. Low-speed vehicles must follow state law. They operate in the lane of travel, not in a bike lane. Those bike lanes are for bicycles. And they must require appropriate restraints, age-appropriate restraints, driver's license and insurance. And then the pets on the strand ordinance comes into effect May 20th. So from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., no pets on the beach. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. And if you have questions about the numbers, there really wasn't a lot on this report this month. But if you have questions, comments, or concerns, I'll be glad to discuss them with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any changes to your staffing situation?
Yeah, there is actually, and I was actually going to let Assistant Town Manager Ferguson run with that one. She actually has it in her report, so I'm going to pass the torch on to her. But we're looking up. We're headed in the right direction.
I
So
saw some state police going down the road helping out, so today, driving.
we've been enlisting every help
Oh,
we
yeah.
can get. So it's been really good, but we are definitely headed in the right direction with the staff.
Any more questions of the chief? Thank you very much for all
Thank
that you and your staff do.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans, you're up, sir.
Go to sleep, wake up, all you're seeing is little piers here and there. Good afternoon. We are busy, as always, and a lot going on over there. Everybody can see. We're busy. Closing down parking lots, opening up open parking lots. Changing places in town, putting in ADA stuff. Active new home permits is 23. Other active permits is 485. Permits issued over 30,000 is 91. That's an economic indicator. Whenever those remodels and repairs start going up and the number of new construction starts going down, when that number starts coming back up, start buying stock. Permits issued over 100,000 equals 6. Permits substantially, with substantial improvements is 1. Permits issued waiting for pickup is 31, and total permits is 559. So we've got 10 that's in review. We've issued 5 CAMA permits. We've got 13 zoning permits. That means that at least 13 are coming in behind the 10 that's in review. So the permits that were serviced for inspection is 98. That's the ones we put our hands on. We review them every day and we go out and do the inspections, and the total inspections made was 229. All in all, we're steady over there. We're staying busy. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Anybody have a question?
Thank you, Pam.
All right, Ms. Ferguson, you're up, number 12.
I believe we have Mr.
No,
McRaney with the
McCraney,
finance.
I'm sorry, I keep trying to move it here. We need to find out if we got money to move it here. Yeah.
Looking at the finance report for the general fund revenues are down slightly, some increase for the state distributed revenues that need to be put in. So that's offsetting it a little bit, but the cumulative revenue is still good, especially versus the expenditure. And looking at the water sewer fund, revenue should keep trending pretty flat for the rest of the year. There is a big debt expense coming up in April, but other than that, the expenses should also continue trending pretty flat. And for B part, very comparable to the previous year, and I did notice that parking revenue is up approximately 83,000 over last year. Attributed to the off-peak park.
Anybody have any questions?
Just one quick one. Are the pump station 2 grant monies included anywhere in these curves?
No.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
That's on the website if you look at Fund 35.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McCraney. All right, Ms. Ferguson, number 12.
Yes, sir. So we'll start with the Greensboro Street Lift Station. The Buy America, Build America waivers we were worried about last month did come through from EPA on 3/20/25. I listed here items completed to date, but the saw cut opening for the floor door, placed structural steel columns to support the lower level ceiling of the station, and constructed columns and second floor slab and beams, including electrical conduit placement in the slab. On Block Q restroom and parking, we held a pre-construction meeting with the contractor on April 3rd. The staff has been doing pre-construction utility locates last week. We're accomplishing as much as we can, and that's been communicated to the contractor before June 30. He's getting me an updated number that will fall that he anticipates after June 30, which may change what's in your budget packets for Thursday night, but I'm still waiting on that number. Extension has been applied for with the state as far as the timeline on the grant. As far as our employee updates at the front desk, the face to greet you when you come into town hall is now Riley Gleason. She replaced Penny, who was moved to the tax administration position, so that's who's at our front desk. Chris Thompson, who started his career with us and then went to the highway patrol, is now back full-time. He was part-time with the police department. He's full-time. And since the time of your report, Jeremy, help me out if I murder this. John Bukowski has a conditional offer of employment through us for the police department. So we also are bringing somebody else on board. As far as our stormwater on Ocean Boulevard, the staff, the public works staff, and I met with the Corps on 3/31 regarding understanding the timeline and scope of the project. That for this part of the project would be the 300 block of Ocean Boulevard and the east end of Mullet and Avenue A. The Corps does plan to be here at the May meeting to brief the board. and discussions with McGill to understand permitting and design requirements for next fiscal year so that you could have solid numbers to look forward to in your budget have been included in your packets for Thursday night. The Pier building was removed per the last month's bid award. And then as far as the federal priorities and the trip to Washington DC, it was a productive trip that was a combo of the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association Conference and a visit to Capitol Hill. The meetings included the Corps headquarters, the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee on Water Resources and the Environment, Representative David Rouser, the Senate Appropriation Committee on Environmental and Public Works, Senator Tom Tillis and Bud's aides and legislative assistants met with us, and appropriations request was submitted to Senator Tillis April 3rd for the Lockwood Folly Inlet. The House has not opened their funding forms yet, but we will submit one on the House side when that occurs. The Sand Matters Conference was held on April 1st. It was a workshop at UNCW to explore regional sediment management. I attended. Mayor Pro Tem Myers was there. More to come on how that process unfolds at the state level. And then since the time of your report, both your canal dredging surveys and the beach annual maintenance surveys will be conducted and are underway. Canal dredging is scheduled to happen first, and then the beach surveys will be within the next couple of weeks. And because I have to let you guys know about budget adjustments, just so you know, last year Coastal Geomatics billed us at the end of the year, but the bill for the beach surveys did not get processed before closeout, which means they were paid in July for April's work last year. And so money has been moved from the raking and tilling line to the shoreline line to pay shoreline monitoring line to pay for their work that's happening in the next 2 weeks. So just so you're aware. They just didn't get paid at all last year because it happened during closeout, so they're getting paid this year for both times.
Okay.
Moving to the second page of the report. Remember we talked about last month that I would only do things that kind of change and were updated. The bathroom is 100 days from when the contract was signed 4/3 because they had turn some documents in past you guys passing it. So contract actually signed on 4/3. And then Tim has been working. He did some survey work for the request that you guys had to start examining the fire department and kind of a footprint there. And then as of today, the fire department has presented what they foresee as needs they might have there. So the two of them will be kind of working together to flesh through some of that stuff. And that would be my review.
Any questions from the commission?
Thanks,
No,
Christie.
Thanks.
All right, with number 13, Ms. Ferguson.
Yes, sir. I'd asked David Ward from the fire department to come up as the assistant chief, and this was brought before you last month. I told you that before acting, I thought you should let it go to our attorney to make sure that we were covered legally. He has some samples for you tonight that he's gone over with me. He did present language to the attorney. Her comment that she's provided to me is that she would just, and you don't have this yet, but it would just be to understand estimated cost to maintain annually. If we could see that added so that we can account for inflation or know about what that is. But other than that, it's cleared for the attorney unless she wants to weigh in with something else.
Okay, yeah, and as far as I can go ahead and kind of address that, in the short term, we're gonna take care of, the maintenance, and as it goes through the few years, we can kind of get a better estimate of that, how the devices, which I brought, so I did bring some things for show and tell, so you can see. This would be the two devices that would be, on the station. Our goal is for these not to be, you know, we want to put our emphasis on prevention. That's ultimately there. This would, but these would be available, and I'm going to show you the sign, which is not exactly what it's going to look like. But we're going to cover that within that $2,000 that we've decided to go up front. So we'll kind of see that it goes on a few years. I'm not sure if that ultimately answers your question, because we're going to be buying, you know, a cache of signs, a cache of devices that we'll have available in the event that one becomes damaged or goes missing. We'll be able to go out and replace that and put it back up. In our conversations with other beach communities that have similar devices, they haven't had an issue with those being taken or destroyed. So I don't expect it. We'll have to, have that as well. But we're gonna take care of that, at least in the short term, probably for the first few years. We'll see how it goes, and if it works fine, we'll continue to do so. That was kind of my comment in there, that we'll kind of give you a heads up if it doesn't look like we're gonna be able to cover that, in the future. But as for right now, we plan on taking care of that, at least in the short term, for anything that we come up for. And as you can see on the updated information that I presented, I was able to work with some local companies and things, and was able to increase the number of stations ultimately be out. There'll be every 600 feet, and that total is 72 stations for the entire island. So that pretty much covers inlet to inlet. So the farthest you would be was 300 feet away. Now, the downside of that is ultimately they may or may not be at a public beach access as well. So Chief Todd had actually brought this up, and I talked to Ms. Ferguson about us having a different sign that we would include at the public accesses that was just informational only, just so they can scan the QR code and get the information instead of having to go on the beach and then look for a station to get that. So where our large population are coming over and going over onto the beach, they would just be able to walk and scan that. We were already in discussions on our end about doing some of the different like linen companies and having ideas and things about that, discussions to get information out to the houses that would have this same information on it, with other, PR videos and things that would come along to aid in that process. Because like I said, our focus is really on prevention. So if we can prevent any accidents from happening on the beach, that's ultimately our goal. That kind of, we like to work ourselves out of a job in that respect. So I did bring just a couple samples on SAC because I'm holding off on ordering some of the stuff based on, whether it moves forward or not. But this is the sample of the sign, as you can see. So it does have town logo, our logo, the town information. We are going to change some of this labeling. It's been through one revision already, but we weren't quite happy with some of the language because we really wanted to put the emphasis on the data itself and really follow along with the National Weather Service information. And we're not issuing double red flags. So the National Weather Service, how they go is a red. So they, green, yellow, red. And also with the marine pests that come on there, the town, of my knowledge, on discussion, has never issued anything for that, nor are we issuing as well. We do, we'll do a public service announcement if we get man of war sightings or something like that. But ultimately, the ocean's full of little critters that'll cause us harm along the way. But once it's mounted, so our plan, and let's say this, the colors aren't exact, but this would be located on top of the post with the closest address, either east or west. This would be white with blue, so it'll match the signage color and be easy to see any identifiable that would come along with that. And of course, the device would be Velcro, double-sided Velcro strap, easy access below it on the pole as well. And you can see from our plan, we're obviously available to. We're going to be inspecting those daily once they go out, and pretty much once we get the season, we're responsible for taking those up and storing them. As well, in the event that we do have some sort of coastal storm or hurricane, we wouldn't want to lose those tubes, so we would make public notice that they're being removed, take those down, and then public notice that they're going back out, and place them back out as soon as the storm passes and it's safe for folks to be back out onto the beach. So otherwise, they would be out there and we would be keeping a check on them. Obviously, I know we can enhance that through other means, but that pretty much covers mostly what would be there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have as it relates to that.
Ms. Thomas?
No, I don't have any questions. I was gonna make a motion unless somebody had a
Mr. Meyer?
question.
Well, timing wise, when do you think we can start seeing these?
Well, I'd love to have them done by Memorial Day. We're going to take care of installing them, but it's really just comes down to supplier issues. I did ordered a sample. It came in 2 days. So I think that's not going to be a huge issue. And as soon as we can get, the sign's going to need another revision, which that's being done locally. And we did get to go with a little bit larger sign. It's actually 20 by 24. So it's really easy to see. The QR code is not active, but that's just the flip of a switch. We'll be able to turn that on. And of course, we can monitor every time that scan and get to provide feedback to the board as well, so we can see how many times people are really scanning that QR code and getting information off the beach, so we get some good feedback with that. So, as quick as possible for us, quite faster the better, so.
Marcus.
Is it possible for us to move forward with this partnership pending final review from the attorney tonight?
She's done. She just wanted to
Okay.
make sure to know what costs were, and he answered that question, so you're good.
May I make a motion to proceed with the partnership with the fire department?
A second.
Discussion, anyone? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Unanimously approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. All right, we're ready for Thomas, or Ms. Thomas and Ms. Barnes, number 14.
Sure. So I wanted to have a discussion and possible action on the master plan for Jordan Boulevard and the Block Q area, beginning with the Block Q as the initial phase. You can read the background there, we have it in our master plan. We should consider starting the process this fiscal year because we have some money left in the architect's budget. There's been several proposals for different amenities to be added to Block Q coming from the Parks and Rec. They recommended that we have the bandstand there, and they recommended 4 pickleball courts. Therefore, the amenities to consider for Block Q would include, but not limited to, a new bandstand, dance floor, lawn, seating areas for concerts, and 4 pickleball courts. I'm not proposing that we change the parking for the boats around the perimeter of Block Q. I would hope that we could keep that in the design as we go forward. And then we can move towards a larger master plan for the next fiscal year, which would include Jordan Boulevard, the old pavilion area, and whatever else we want to do on Block Q, not limited to boat parking and optimal car parking. So we may be able to put some boat parking underneath the bridge where the triangle thing is, but that's for the architect to tell us what can be done. So I'd like to make a motion to instruct the staff to work with the current architect to move forward on coming up with a Block Q design. That includes a bandstand, 4 pickleball courts, dance floor, lawn seating.
A second.
A second it.
Discussion, anyone?
Yes, sir. If I may. I realize my name is on this. I have a slightly different take on this. I just want to put this out there. In my mind, the goal of this task was for the board to start fleshing out guidelines such that we could eventually hire a design firm. And I say guidelines, not requirements, because I don't know that the board should drive the design. It's my opinion, mine alone. The intent is to allow the design firm to bring their creativity and expertise to bear on developing a master plan. So my thoughts were that the board would sit down and say, we want certain things, okay? Like, and for instance, and I'm not advocating for anything. What I'm going to talk about is just a starting point for a discussion. But we may say up to 30 boat parking spaces. We may say minimum of 2 pickleball courts. We may say a covered stage, multi-purpose stage, 30 by 40 feet. That the realignment of some of the roads under the bridge is fair game. The one thing I do know is I have talked with people with power company, and one thing we don't, which will be a hard and fast thing, is we don't want to mess with trying to move the switch gear next to the pump station. That's easily between $500,000 and $1 million just to move that around. But the goal was come up with something, and then the board has to kind of hash out what they want before we start attaching specific numbers. So that, it was unfortunate I wasn't able to engage in this enough because I had a family matter to deal with. But that's where I wanted to get with this. And to me, the action is for the board to start discussing this and see if we can figure out some stuff so we can hire a design firm, but let them go see what they can do with all this area. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Again, you know, moving forward with the design, the restroom, getting it built was important to us, complying with the ADA regulations, in my opinion. But, you know, it's the pickleball courts. I understand that is a activity that seems to be really popular right now. You know, I can remember back in the 70s and 80s when tennis courts were the craze. And there were several built in different places along the island to accommodate the tennis players. But the thing I have, you know, the pickleball courts, we've got a couple right across from us here. And adding a couple more is probably maybe not a bad idea. But it goes back to a few years ago when we were told that they didn't want any boat parking because they didn't want to have any boat parking, because they didn't want any pavement or gravel. And now we're gonna put 4 pickleball courts that are solid cement. I'm sorry, I don't see why the big change of heart all of a sudden. However, I'm willing to entertain that, as you said, Rick, to look at it, to see what we need to do, but I've got to side with, you know, reality, and reality is that to pay for all of this, we need to have the paid boat parking that we had previously wanted in that area, and that we said would help pay for the area. We can reduce the size, change the angle, whatever we want to do, and still have plenty of room for a pickleball court. But before we move in a direction where the board needs to make a decision, I think it would be advantageous to us all to get the input from not only just the residents here that live here all the time, but the taxpayers. The taxpayers that pay their taxes just like every one of us, whether we live here or not. And the taxpayers that own boats that aren't fortunate enough to live on a waterway, that need a place to bring their boat down and put it in the water and park their trailer. And they either get a year permit or pay for the parking. But it puts the people that pay the taxes, as well as the people that come and rent the houses that help the people pay the taxes. You know, we need to be mindful of those people. So again, I'm all for looking at, you know, the different things to do on this very valuable piece of property that we told wasn't valuable to start with, but it's a very valuable piece of property. But we need to be sure that we get the input from the people that are going to use it. Again, pickleball is great. I mean, my doctor told me it was probably not a good idea because that's probably the number one cause for injuries in older adults is pickleball. So again, you know, we don't have a young group that lives here all the time. We're all aging. But a pickleball court's not a bad idea. I love to watch them play here. I think having some over in Block Q is great. We might could use it where it's a combination pickleball court and dance platform for the concerts. But to only allow boat parking around the perimeter, any of you boaters know that to try to put a parallel park, a boat and a trailer without the boat on it, is relatively difficult. The signage that we have seems to help, but it's still confusing. If one guy parks the wrong way, everybody seems to want to park that way. So it makes it difficult. I think before we sit down and have a hard design, we need to get some input from the people that are gonna use it, and pay for it, and get some insight as to what they want. You know, a lot of people, I've got a boat sitting in my driveway. And to put it in the water here, I've got to put it in the water and then, you know, if you don't get there at 5:30 in the morning, you're out of luck. Especially when the fishing's good. So again, I think we need to really look at the, you know, the plans that we had originally that the Parks and Rec put out. It looks like there's plenty of room in the middle for pickleball courts. The engineer that designed this, I think we've got some room to make some changes and stuff on it using that same group. Is that correct, Christie?
What I've described to several board members is, and I think that's why Tracy was, in the initial paragraph sticking with the initial phase is, right now the architect is working on the restroom in the main triangle portion of Block Q. If you guys were to move to this second phase, which she has said stay away from this evening, because people were talking about potentially road change and that kind of thing. That is a larger scope of work that will require it going out to bid.
Again.
And because it's an entirely different project. So I think the goal was to try to see if there was a way to move towards being more position ready to go to a concert facility starting when the fiscal year started and getting some leeway on the front end versus waiting and have planning occur after the fact.
I agree that valuable property needs to be utilized as best we can. But again, we need to have some input from our constituents, taxpayers, as well as registered voters here on the island to decide exactly what they want. The boat parking and the parking around the perimeter brings in revenue. Pickleball courts are fun, dangerous, but fun, and they don't bring in any revenue. So that's
Mr. Myers.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about this for years. We've had boat parking around the right of way of South Shore, Carolina, Brunswick, Jordan Boulevard. I've got a Google Maps picture I pulled off from a while ago that shows 37 boats parked around the perimeter in the right of way, not all of them legally, probably a couple were double parked. But my objection to that plan when it came up was we were going to go from those 37 available spots in the right of way down to only 15. And that's what that plan shows. And that's why we were opposed to that plan. So right now, the way I'm hearing it is we're going to leave space in the right of way around those streets for boat parking like it's been for at least 5 years, maybe longer, probably as long as those streets have been there. That's where the boat parking is. So I guess I don't see a boat problem right now. I think, in my opinion, I'd like to get a concert set up, and I'd like to get it set up so that we're not prohibiting the availability of putting pickleball or basketball or yoga or whatever, but we need some kind of a plan that says if we put a band shelter here and a dance floor, we can still have room to put in these other amenities as we see fit, and we won't touch the boat parking that exists today. You know, it sounds like we're going to try to solve the world and probably won't have concerts in for another couple of years. That's been my drive, is to try to get something there and leave the plan flexible enough that we can go from 4 pickleball courts to 2, or we can, you know, throw other things out there. But it seems like to get a full design for everything before we even move forward on a bandstand is just going to set us back for years. And it'd be nice to not have to have that happen. It'd be nice to be able to say, okay, we can move ahead with this and get the concerts there. We can work out this other stuff in the future. We know we didn't preclude anything by the actions that we're taking. So I don't know if it's solvable, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Parker.
My concern is if we put another fixture there, another structure, we develop a constraint for someone to do design. So that is my concern. And eventually we'll pluck this in and pluck that in, and we might find we didn't get all the puzzle pieces put together correctly. I don't think it's going to be years before you have a concert venue, but that It should not be. And certainly this whole project would be approached in phases, if for no other reason, probably to funding. So I understand that with the pavilion gone and pickleball being very popular and the concerts are very popular, that these facilities that we currently have are not perfect, and I think we can do something better. But I don't think we're actually broken right now because yoga can meet in this room. We do have pickleball facilities here. I know it may get crowded, and I do confess I don't do yoga, play pickleball, or any of that stuff, nor do I own a boat. And we do park boats around Block Q. So my thoughts on it were that we take a pause and see if we can get the entire property area looked at and let a designer who has the experience and creativity to give us the best thing. I'm not the guy who can do that. I don't think the board has the skill set to do that. So I would rather take a breath, and yeah, you might have the concerts another year over at Bridgeview. But I would really like to see us get something that is integrated with all of this stuff. I keep going back to what they have at Ocean Isle. I think that's, their equivalent of Block Q, be it on the mainland. I think, McGill, I think, designed that. I think that's great. But if we start sticking things here and all of a sudden you can't fit something else in, then you got a problem. Maybe you're going to have to tear something out. So that was my thought on it. And we'll see what the board wants to do with it.
About it?
Yeah. We put Block Q on pause for 2 years now. I think it's essential we get a bandstand. The public wants it. The situation we have, while it's ideal that Christie's got that to keep it going, I think that's the next step that we need to do, and putting it on pause, I think is not right. The boat parking plan that we had was adding spots, the diagonal spots. We still gonna have the perimeter parking. We have a wildlife ramp there that doesn't cost the town anything to maintain, and we owe it to the community, the people that have charter boats, the people that live on the island that have boats, to add boat parking. And the biggest argument was we didn't want pavement. So we struck the boat parking because we're not going to put pavement on there. Now we're going to put pavement for pickleball courts. So, I mean, I think and the area around it, the streets and Jordan Boulevard, that needs to be pushed because we need to get the concert series. We need to get a bandstand. The Parks and Recs board had done multiple plans for this area, and I think they've done an excellent job at it. And I think we need to get moving with it.
Commissioners, anybody else comment? Yes, ma'am.
Based on what I'm hearing, and the board can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you potentially have 3 paths forward. It doesn't sound like everybody is completely on the same page, even though we're all trying to get to the same end. So path 1 is that you don't take a vote right now and you kind of push this. Path 2 is that the staff could be directed to bring you back. What I'm hearing is the top priority, which is a concert venue on the plan that you had, but eliminate everything but what's approved in the concert venue, which doesn't address Mr. Parvis's concerns that he said in design for the future, because it limits it, because that space is already then gone. And then the next option is to wait until you've already got it in your proposed budget that you'll be evaluating Thursday night. So you could either talk about it more during that session, or you could just say it's in the proposed budget, and if the budget passes, you're looking at a master plan for next year to pick it up then. So I think that that's where you are, and I just wanted to kind of throw those 3 paths out before you feel like you're compelled to take a vote.
So in summary, that is your recommendation, no action.
That's not my recommendation. I'm just
What
saying,
is your
it sounds like we're not to the where we need to be on consensus. I think this was brought forward because there was a desire to try to get the concert so that we can move, so that it's not a constrained construction window starting in July. But if that's not where the board is, you've got it in your proposed budget for next year, or you could talk about it more on Thursday. It's up to the board.
Well, my question to Mr. Thomas and Mr. Parker is what's your desire at this point?
So, okay, so my thoughts on Block Q are the Parks and Rec came and told us that the only place on the island that it would work to put pickleball is Block Q. So therefore, if we're gonna have pickleball, and maybe we don't all wanna vote for that, which is fine, then that's where it would have to be. I think the bandstand made sense on Block Q because that's where the bathrooms are, so it just was a logical extension that's where we would have the concerts. Maybe that's premature if we get a overall plan and it's gonna tell us to have them somewhere else, but I would be surprised about that. As far as the boat parking, I, all summer long, drove by that area 3 times a week and at 9 o'clock and at 11 o'clock, and I never saw more than 3 to 5 boats parked outside of the state part, except for 4th of July. But we can't build for 4th of July. So I don't, and I'm just talking in that one area. Obviously, if we have 35 spots, there would be lots of extra places that they could be. I don't think we need to provide those 15 parking spots in Block Q. So that's one thing that I'm pretty adamant about. I will never vote for those 15 parking lots in Block Q. I'm okay with having that parking all the way around Block Q. I'm okay with looking at additional parking underneath the bridge. If we took that fence out and reconfigured that road, maybe we could get some pull-through boat parking over there, just a few steps away. I can withdraw my motion if that's what everyone wants to do and do a comprehensive plan or think about it a little bit more and come back after we do the budget. We're just pushing the concerts out, so
Myers?
Yeah, yeah, it's my understanding this is on the agenda because we had extra money in this year's budget and we thought we could get something done. But after hearing this, I think we'd be wasting the money because I don't think we can give them good guidance and we'd probably be exactly where we are. So I would say let's just withdraw and kick it down and deal with it next year versus trying to sneak something in now that's just not going to be successful.
The plan for the concert that the Parks and Rec Board put out, I think they did it according to sound and sun, is that correct? So they picked the best location for the bandstand. I don't see how you can't put that up and still design things like boat parking. It's not gonna affect where you put the pickleball courts or anything like that. There's plenty of room to put that. And I think we need to move forward with getting the bandstand put in that area.
But it won't jeopardize any of the other, the pickleball or the boat parking. And again, I'm not saying we have to have all those, we can have a bit more than we're not taking as much room. And still do the perimeter, because you got a dually and a triple axle trailer that you're taking people out to fish with, it's tough. But the bandstand, I think, is really important, and I don't think it would jeopardize any of the other amenities until we get some more public input.
One thing I'd like to point, or a couple of things I'd like to point out, just in trying to think out of the box, and Christy, I'm glad I'm all the way down here for what I'm about to say. You could think out of the box and say, move the playground to Block Q and put pickleball courts where the playground is. I talked to a couple of our property owners here who, they're both attorneys, and they're not real happy about pickleball noise and lighting as it affects residents. And so they said there's all kinds of lawsuits about that. I have no idea. And because there is that optimal location that that the architect came up with, when they stuck the stage there, under the old stormwater plan, it was sitting on top of stormwater drainage issues. Furthermore, if we do hard structures, I'd like to see maximizing pervious pavements and, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, we kind of had a scalable subsurface drainage system for the bathroom parking lot. So I know we might have to put it off a little bit, but maybe that ultimate location for the stage would have to give a little bit to accommodate some other things. So I still think we ought to take the pause and try to figure that out. But the board can vote it if they want. I don't mind being the odd man out.
I would like to see a concert being put in sooner than later. And I don't think, I'm not a planner, I don't do the drawing, I'm not an architect, but I don't see how that one structure would jeopardize the rest of anything else that we want there. And it would help, I think it's the best place for it. It's only music one night a week, and it's just during the summer. And I think it's perfect. In my opinion, that was always kind of what was in the back of my head other than the bathroom, is when we purchased that property. I'd like to see that move forward. And
Okay.
we're still playing for the rest.
Yeah, okay, so there's a motion. Heather, can you read that back?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me. I read half of it. I only have the beginning part of it, which was to instruct the staff to work with the current architect, and that's the part I lost after that. Sorry.
All right, so I think the motion was to instruct the staff to work with the current architect to develop a plan for Black Q, because that was like the first part. That includes, but not limited to, a new bandstand, dance floor, lawn seating area for concerts, and 4 pickleball courts. And I would like to add that it could be in phases. So, when they do it, it needs to be in phases so that we could just do the bandstand. And what would that entail? Is that like something that we can tell the architect to do, that we can do it, so we can do it in phases?
Well, as long as you're not planning to broaden the scope of this work to the other stuff that involves the pavilion.
Just
making
Block Q.
sure. If you're doing just Block Q, I think that it's probably something that he could accomplish if you do that you could get potentially an answer back on a concert venue before June 30, if you were to make that motion and do it in phases. But he would need to also, working with staff, coordinate with planning department to make sure that based on all the zones that we are using the space as best we can. Because I know that Tim had some, comments about where it was on that plan that we would want to follow up with. So I think you could start with that if everybody can reach consensus on at least looking at the concert venue, and then you could phase in the other things that you talked about as you guys explore them more. And part of instructing the staff would be for me to get a cost estimate on what just going after a concert venue might look like.
Okay, so I was just repeating my motion from before.
So you're happy
I'm
with
good.
that?
I seconded. I'll still second it.
All right. Everybody understand the motion has been revisited? Are you ready to vote?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We've been here for,
Thank you, sir.
5 minutes, and then we're gonna, at 5 after, I'm gonna hit the gavel. We're gonna be back to do. Okay, Mr. Myers and Mr. Parfus, you're on number 15, page 2 of the agenda.
Okay. The Resilient Coastal Communities Program is from Division of Coastal Management. They are accepting applications for their program. If selected, they will provide at no cost to us assistance to develop phases 1 and 2, where's where we'd start, and it's to develop a community engagement and risk vulnerability assessment, and then the planning of projects, identification of the projects, prioritization of those projects. So it's money to do those things, which would help us address our resiliency on the island. There's an application that's involved. It's in the packet. There's 14 questions. Doesn't seem overly cumbersome, but the deadline is April 25th, which is a week from Friday. So to me, we ought to throw our name in the hat, get some money, come up with some plans for addressing resiliency. This would be in addition to the stormwater. This would be, pretty much whatever we decide is the most urgent thing to do here. So what I'd like to do is to have us go after this, direct town staff to complete the application and submit it so that we get our name in the hat to get money to do that type of work. I move that we direct staff to complete and submit the application for phases 1 and phases 2, which, as I said, is in the packet here.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion, anyone? Yes, sir. Mr. Parfus.
Mr. Smith, would you like to go first? Okay. All right. Well, I'll be brief. I think it's a good program. I think we need to make the application. However, I'm concerned about staff workload and other other commitments. So I would prefer that we ask the town to make the best effort to get that application in, because other higher priority things may prevent it from getting there. So I just want to give them a little breathing room.
Mr. Pepperidge, that's exactly what I want. Thank you. I mean, these guys it's amazing what the small number of people and on our staff can get done, and giving them a little bit of leeway instead of making them walk off the cliff. I think that's perfect. Thank you.
I'm willing to revise the motion. I agree. I agree that there's a lot of stuff that they're getting distracted on that I wish wasn't there, and it's impacting their time, but it is reality. So.
For the motion.
Maybe we could let Christie talk. She
Go
might
ahead.
add
Go ahead,
something
Christie.
to the.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, to try to make everybody feel better, I appreciate the leeway. I've been working on this for 2 days and 7 questions in, so I feel confident that between the planning department and myself that we are going to get this turned in for you. But we appreciate the leeway on the, if something happens that gets in our way, that you're not going to feel like we slighted you.
All right. Doc?
Will this affect our relationship with the current engineers we have, like the stormwater?
No, but in addition to that question, on the, I'll direct you to the first page of I'm sorry, it's not the first page of the application. I will say this part here. I'm gonna find the page where it says, potential partners. And the way the program works, as Mr. Myers, I believe, was explaining to you is, and I'll explain a little bit more briefly, communities, like municipalities, counties, any of those it's page 72 that I'm trying to send you to, can submit an application. Additionally, engineering firms submit an application. So where it says partner applicant, you can list somebody you may want to partner with. But the town has several engineers across lots of these divisions that they talk about. Storm surge, we have coastal engineer. Storm water, we have an engineer. The pier, we have an engineer. So we can either leave it blank and we can do it at the state level like they do it, where they just randomly match you with somebody. Or if the board prefers, we can list, I think I have enough space there to type, and we can list every engineer that we currently work with the town and say we'd be happy to partner with any of those engineers that also turn in an application, whatever the board's preference is. But otherwise, if you don't list a partner, then they match you with somebody.
Like a dating game?
Yes.
Yeah.
We, in other words, we would want to put a partner applicant that was in conflict with one that we've already got working with. that's gonna
Well,
monitor.
you're not putting a particular project, so they're helping you identify risk across several areas. And since there are different engineers that touch all of those areas, I would either recommend that you list all your engineers and then see if any of them are turning in the application and partner with any of them, or you don't list anything and take it at a random pick.
I would go with your recommendation.
Me too.
Hmm.
Whatever you think is best.
Okay.
Well, then you recommend either or.
So,
So,
I will, if there's space, and I will, and it lets me fill it in there because I was waiting to see if the board had a preference one way or another.
Okay.
I will list all our engineers across the board and say if any of these apply, we're happy to be matched with
Yeah.
them. That we currently are working with them in this fiscal year, and if not, then I'll leave it blank, and then we're up to the draw on that.
I would prefer that we list our engineers because they're familiar with what we have here.
Thank you, Christine, for your work on that, considering you're doing two jobs.
Who wants to speak? We got mumbling going on. I can't.
And I just thank Christine.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a motion and a second. I think we're, yeah.
Anybody else want to say anything? If not, you ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans,
I feel like I went into.
number 16.
On page 76.
Good afternoon. Very excited to be here again.
Lightning strike. Tell the story.
All right. See where I'm at. Think I'd have enough time to be well prepared, wouldn't you?
I think you're page 76, Tim.
Head there. Takes old people a little while. All right. This is a text amendment to our NFIP. It doesn't require, since it's a text amendment and it's prior to 157, it doesn't require a public hearing, but it's a text amendment. It went through the planning board. They approved it. This is a text amendment to go from a 150 for an accessory structure to 100 foot. That puts us in line with the national NFIP guidelines and corrects an error that was left in our floodplain management ordinance when it was revised in 2018. This was recommended by our partners from FEMA and from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, and it assures that we don't have, it's another plug in a hole to ensure that whenever we have our reevaluations for our CRS, or if we have our annual reevaluation, that we don't get dinged for this simple issue. It's not an issue on the island because accessory structures are almost not allowed based off a usable area of property. So the planning board approved the reduction, and you would get dinged anyway if you did it on, because you'd have a structure larger than would be allowed under the FEMA guidelines. So there is a consistency statement that goes with it that basically says that this is in line with our CAMA land use plan and our other town ordinances. And I would recommend, and so does staff, that you pass this. That you approve it.
Make a motion to accept the approved revisions.
Second, anybody?
A second.
Discussion?
Tim, the difference between the 150 and the 100, what size accessory structure would that even be?
Be a 10 by 10.
Storage shed.
Be a storage shed. And like I said, it's almost
Instead of
impossible to have
15
one in a
by 10.
flood zone. Everything we have here is B zone standards, so it's very, very rare you'd be able to find somewhere on the island where you could have one. Because if you could have a place that would have one, it'd be an X zone and it wouldn't apply.
Got it. Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. All right. Number 17, Ms. Evans.
All right. Put a little paper clip on it. All right, this is to set a public hearing for 15706. And this is, if, can you, have that?
This one?
Yeah, I got a cue Vanna White here.
Apparently we took too long, we're all like that.
Yeah. All right, so what we have here is that everybody knows that we have an ample amount of parking on the island. So what we try to do is try to correct mistakes that we made in the past. What this is this is an ordinance that clears up what a parking space may be. And it basically is changing the ordinance. It says that a 10 by 20 parking space per bedroom is required to remain for the life of the structure and shall not be impeded by permanent or removable barriers or petitions. So whenever you make application for a house, you're required to have X amount of bedrooms, X amount of parking places per bedroom, and that has to be maintained throughout the history of the home. So when someone comes in to get a zoning approval, to put in a swimming pool, to change the configuration or do an enclosure under a house, part of the zoning review is to make sure that we're not letting them get away with not having the proper amount of parking so that they clutter up the rest and take everybody else's parking space all over the island. It's to make sure they have what is required under the ordinance. Well, we never noticed in the past until here recently that what would happen is someone would get an enclosure, which you're allowed to do, but have an open area under the house. And then they would go for an enclosure. If you go to the next picture, they would go for an enclosure, they would enclose it, and the next thing they would do is they would put in a garage door. Well, if you see there, I think it's number 5, maybe, parking place number 5, now has a garage door going through the middle of it. So that was a full parking place that's now cut into 2 pieces. And so this ordinance corrects that. So if you're going to do an enclosure like that, then the idea is that you've got to find a parking space somewhere else. Most of them do have another area if they want to enclose, or they can open up an area in order to get that additional parking space. But we want to close this loophole because you can do a lot of things in that yard and underneath that structure that would do away with it, you know what I mean, if we don't change the definition. And it's been done in the past. Most likely we've not, especially with the garage doors. So we need this to go to a public hearing so we can change that definition so that we can stop that from occurring.
Is that one parking space per bedroom or
Yeah.
room?
Yep, per bedroom.
Bedroom.
Yeah. And bedrooms, by the way, are those which are depicted on the plans. So be careful when you start adding bedrooms
Okay.
for more than one reason.
Mr. Myers?
So that drawing up there, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 across the front.
Mhm.
It looks like it's got 5-foot setbacks on each side, because a lot of these lots are gravel.
That's right.
50-foot lot, you could get 5, or
Yeah.
that's not allowed.
Well,
What about the setback?
we don't say anything about it parking in the setbacks because
Okay.
typically ground structures or anything that's going to be movable, it can go into setbacks, it's going to come out. So we don't really take notice of that with the setbacks. But what could happen is where number 1 is, you know what I mean, that's a driveway, but where number 1 and 2 and 3 is, they might want to put something out there like a flower bed or something, and now they don't have 2 and 3. That wasn't covered in there before. As long as they showed it on the plan, they could claim they had parking spaces that really were not defined under the definition. This definition will help us hopefully clean some of this up. It's important for us to have this.
Mr. Myers?
So what about those houses? I mean, they're non-compliant now, or what?
Whenever we get notification that we may have a house that's done something like that, then we send them a notice of violation, and they have to actually provide that parking place, or else we're going to start sending them back.
So the houses that we've got now that don't have the legitimate number for this,
If they were in, when this ordinance, the original ordinance was approved, right? Now, are you talking about the ones where it's like now? They're
Yeah.
just gonna remain non-conforming until they try to do something.
okay.
We're not gonna go out there and start dinging people that have already, it's either slipped through the cracks. What I'm saying is now when they come
Going
in, we
Yeah.
can, and moving forward, you don't ever want to do that. You don't want to take an ordinance, make it non-conforming, you know what I mean? And then go out there. and
We got a
start
couple that look like used car lots. I mean, just
Right.
literally, I don't know how they get so many cars in their front yard.
Right, well, I mean, if, the more they can get in there, the better. I mean, really, used to, it was limited by the septic system, and things like that were in the front yard. But the more that they can get in the front yard, the more they can park. That's really what we want. We don't want them out in the neighborhood taking up parking spaces that we are, have out for the public. They really should be able to have their parking at their house, and that's what we want. And we do make them have enough parking. And our ordinance is pretty strict about that. Now, the parking sizes and things, remember, we changed those with the house, when we changed the house size, with setbacks, long back, 7, 8 years. Anyway, I need, if you so choose, we just need this to go to public hearing. You're not approving anything tonight, just set.
So to be appropriate to have the public hearing before the next meeting, Heather?
Absolutely.
All right, so can I make a motion to have the public hearing before the next meeting?
Second.
The same date and time, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, our next board meeting, yeah.
Not just between now and then.
No. Right before the meeting, or would we have it at 5 o'clock then, and the meeting would start at 5:30 or something?
Yeah, we would just do it at 5 o'clock, because since he has several of them, I would just
Right.
advertise them all at 5 o'clock.
Any
Okay.
commissioner have a problem with that? Not, by consensus, it'll be at 5 o'clock.
Perfect.
All
All
right,
right, this is everybody's chance to be a world-class hero now. The Board of Adjustments, I have anybody that serves on the Board of Adjustments in here? Board of Adjustments, for years, we get this on a regular basis. I might be our number one, might be all of them, is cargo lifts. A lot of people, we said years ago, we wanted to accommodate our aging community. And so we tried to do everything we can to have it where they're assisted. In the meantime, what happened was we have an ordinance that's very unfriendly to that. What amounts to is that a lot of people get turned down in the zoning department because they can't put these lifts in the side yard setbacks, you know what I mean, or in the front or rear yard setbacks, because they've already taken up as much space as they can to get the most value out of their lot. And so, they live there in the house and now they're getting, a little older and they want a cargo lift, and the ordinance just don't allow it. So it is a hardship. It ends up at the Board of Adjustments. And for at least a year or two, they've been asking me to try to get an ordinance in place or get a change in the ordinance so that it helps accommodate this. We currently, in the ordinance, in our town ordinance, we currently allow for one set of steps to go in the front or the rear, but not both, to encroach up to 10 feet. That's the ordinance.
Steps.
So what we're proposing is an amendment to the ordinance to add a section that says cargo lifts, that same section, cargo lifts and platform lifts that meet the requirements of ASME A118.1 of the North Carolina Residential Building Code may encroach into the front or rear setbacks, but not both. And what this will do is keep them from having to completely remodel their houses or tear out part of their decks in order to get these cargo lifts in for accommodations. It really creates a financial issue when these things really aren't taking up that much space.
So why wouldn't you do side?
But because there's only 5 feet there.
Okay.
And our ordinance already recognizes that we're already too close on the side.
Got it.
You start putting stuff in that side setback as close as they are, if something like a motor or something like that was to have an issue, you got a fire on the side of another house. We're already too close.
Okay.
So front and rear setback. Also, there's a noise issue. They make noise too. So you front and the rear, but not both. They can make a choice. It allows us to go in our setback. This has already been through the zoning board. Planning and zoning board approved it. They signed the consistency statement, and so we're asking for a public hearing on this as well.
So we can just add that one to the other one?
Yep.
If I can.
Consensus, everybody
Yes, sir.
agree to that?
Yep.
All right, Nick. You got that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All right. Continue, Ms. Tibbs, you're doing great.
Oh my God, there's another one. Okay, this one's a little different. I don't even know where to start again. If y'all remember a couple of meetings ago, I opened my mouth about something. I thought it was gonna be something simple. Anyway, it turns out that the planning board thinks it's a lot more complicated than what I made it out, and per their discussion, it just might be. So now, this doesn't say y'all have to do this, but they're asking if the board wants to continue on the path about doing something about rocks, driveways and rocks in the paths and on the sidewalk. And bike
I think we skipped one.
You did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Did I
One
skip
more
one?
meeting
Page
request.
97,
Page 97.
What did I skip?
the Board of Adjustments moving a house.
Location of building.
Oh,
wait,
Lord.
fine.
Okay.
Relocated.
No, it's in the right place. 157.085. This also went to the planning board. This was actually another Board of Adjustment request, but it's also a planning staff request. This is a kind of a expensive endeavor for property owners when they go to move a home, and it's unnecessary. The North Carolina Building Code governs structures and how structures are set and how and permitting, which means that when you move a house, you have specific requirements under the North Carolina Building Code that you have to meet. So you can't deny a home under the building code that meets the requirements to be issued a permit. The town can't supersede the building code. So now if it was zoning or something like that, you could deny it, and then we would have to deny it. But under these standards, you can't rewrite the building code in essence. But the town's always been doing this. And what they do is that they require a homeowner to come to the Board of Adjustments to get approval to move a house. And then if they say yes, then they have to come to us, in which we will review everything, including their engineering plans, and decide whether or not they can move the house. So if I go out there and say, no, the house can't be moved, then they've been approved by the building, by you guys, or by the Board of Adjustments, then they're basically been told they can move it. They may have spent a bunch of money, and now they can't. And so the Board of Adjustments has had several of these, and everybody on the Board of Adjustments is kind of in agreement. It really don't need to go to them. It says, basically says in the rule that the building inspector has to approve it as well. So this is basically saying that if you want to move a house, you have to meet the North Carolina Building Code. It comes to us, and then you meet those requirements. It just took it out of saying that it had to go to the Board of Adjustments. That's all. And once again, you're not approving the ordinance, you're just setting it up for a public.
Do y'all agree just to add this?
Yes,
Yep.
sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Are we gonna start at 4:30?
No, 5. Well, our meeting starts now at 5:30.
Yeah, just, we'll have 3 minutes.
I don't think there's gonna be a lot of pushback on
I
that.
don't know either.
All of these are actually very popular, they should be.
You're on number 18.
Can I have just a quick question? What would stop somebody from moving their house? If they want to move it off the island, what would stop?
If they want to move it off the Highland, they'll have to come to the Board of Adjustment. They have to get a permit for us to take it down, and then they have to notify the police department and the highway patrol. And we want them to go away from here if they're not in good shape. They,
That's so.
yeah, there ain't no approvals for that. Get them out of here. We want that, we want $1 million home. We don't want whatever you're taking. All right.
Number 18.
All right, let me see where I'm at now. Okay, so now I'm back to the subcommittee. All right, their recommendation was for y'all to form a committee, or to give them permission to form a committee so that they could study what needed to be done to prevent the rocks in the bike lane and on the side. I thought it was a simple thing, but they did start discussion. They had a lot of questions I haven't thought of. Now, if the board doesn't think that it's necessary, that the steps that's been taken working or anything, then you don't have to do it. But this was me bringing it back to you, them saying they thought that a committee should be formed.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't understand why they can't do it as a committee. Why do they need a subcommittee? I think the planning and zoning should just figure it out. We sent it to them.
I don't know how to answer that because I'm the staff. They voted, gave it to me. I don't, if you, I don't know how to answer that. I mean,
I mean, we gave it to them, so
And they gave it
they
back to-
should do it, and now they're gonna pass it on to someone else. I don't understand why they just don't do it. Can we tell them just do it?
I think you can send it back to them. That, you know, that they need to,
I mean, it said something about engineers. I think they literally have engineers on that planning and zoning, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like Maria is an engineer on the planning and zoning.
I don't remember how she voted.
I recommend that we just send it back to the planning and zoning and tell them to figure it out.
Can I get that right?
Is that the consensus of the
Well,
board?
that's my recommendation, but
Is it gonna hurt? I mean, if they ask for a subcommittee, is it gonna hurt them to?
Let,
Can we,
I mean, let 'em do-
could you allow them just to form a subcommittee?
for what?
Well, we formed a subcommittee to do something. Why can't they form a subcommittee to do something?
Oh, then maybe the subcommittee could have another subcommittee and another subcommittee, and who's gonna do the friggin' work?
Mr. Parkins?
my position is if that committee feels they want a subcommittee, then I'm not going to try to tell them how to do it. It's also my understanding that there was a little, we give them permission, that doesn't guarantee that they are necessarily going to run out there and do one. I see Maria shaking her head up and down. So I don't want to micromanage their business. If they want a committee, we'll give them a committee. They still have, the subcommittee's got to come back to the committee and then it's got to come back to the board. So that's what they want to do. I'll support them having
Yeah,
a subcommittee.
I think their thing was, I'm not sure how I think they wanted to delve into it a little bit deeper. Because they had a lot more questions than I did. I thought it was simple, but they did have some good questions. So I think they wanted to get a little deeper. I'm not sure that this is the, you know what I mean? I think we could have went a little deeper, but I'm not sure how we get there. You know what I mean? Unless they just take their own direction, you know what I mean, to go. So, if that's what board so chooses, then I feel about it.
Well, if you do a subcommittee, you have to follow what I put in the packet. You guys have to direct them to do a subcommittee. It says the planning and zoning board shall not establish any committee, subcommittee, working or similar group compromise. You guys have to do it pursuant to this section. There's a whole section that it's pertaining to, and it directs you what you need to do, how long the committee can be. There are rules in the code book that you guys have to follow if we're doing the subcommittee route.
So they're asking for this? Is that where we're at?
He's saying they might want it.
Yeah.
They
don't
might
know
want it,
then.
they haven't
Yeah, I
asked
think
for
what
it?
they're asking is permission to form one, or direction to form one if so necessary, I guess would be the best one. And then they can
Well, it's
form.
one thing if they ask us, that's okay. You can, but if they want us to tell them to do it,
Well, I think you have to if they're gonna form a subcommittee. I
Well,
think
couldn't
the
they
rules
decide
apply.
if they really need one before they come and ask us?
I think that's what they did. They started talking and they had a lot of questions. I think that's why we did it.
Mr. Parkins?
I'd like to make a motion to direct planning and zoning to form a community advisory committee following the town policy, noting that any engineering costs will require separate budget action.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Everybody understand the motion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all. in
No,
favor?
wait, can I just ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So if the actual planning and zoning needs engineers, they can also come back and ask us to hire an engineer to answer their questions.
Yeah, I guess it would be you'd have to ask Christie, but my guess would be that you would have to, if they decide they want to do that, then we would have to go through the same process, you know.
Whether it's a subcommittee or, I mean, because, okay. I just don't understand how a subcommittee thinks they're gonna answer the questions that the planning and zoning can't answer. But, okay.
Well, I'm
go ahead.
thinking.
We'll take a vote.
Tracy, I think it would operate somewhat similar to, do you remember the water tower issue, the
Mhm.
committee that we had a a committee, and then it went to the planning board. Remember how it works? It went 2 places. And it helped clarify a lot of the, remember, it brought clarity to all the questions. There was a lot of questions. So I think it would operate something like that.
Okay, we got a motion, second, you ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, 4-1, Madam Clerk, you got that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and your staff. Well, number 19, public comments. The audience can speak to anything that's on your mind, whether it's on the agenda or not. If you would like to speak, if you raise your hand, I'll recognize you and come. Lady in the green, come forth and give us your name and speak about whatever's on your mind.
My name is Joy Rankin. I live at 108 Heron Drive here on Holden Beach. Been a property owner here for 37 years, and I just want to say that I am extremely excited that the beach safety warning stations are going up. I think that's much needed. That's a very positive stat. And the other thing that I have concerns about as a boat owner and boater, which we have done for 37 years here at Holden Beach, we do not live on the water. So we transport our boat and trailer and car to the landing to put it in. If you've never tried to park a vehicle with a trailer, it's interesting, to say the least. And it's very difficult to do with a parallel parking situation, even if you're good at parallel parking, which are not all there. So it's my hope that that will be taken into consideration when looking at spaces. I also hope that after hearing the proposal tonight about the Cedar Landing property, I don't mind crossing that bridge to park if that's a possibility. So I would like to see the commissioners throw some support behind that as well. But whatever you do, please think about those of us who do like to boat and need to park. Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma'am. Anyone else want to speak about anything? Yes, sir.
Introduce myself. I'm sure we've all ran across. I'm Jonathan Austin, 106 Burlington and 134 Greensboro, and hopefully a few more properties coming up. But I appreciate you guys working together tonight. It's good to finally see all y'all in person. I'm also with Captain Ryan and them, the other additional boat parking across the bridge. We do boat a lot down here. We fish a lot of tournaments down here, and just go hang out that ramp for a little while. The other thing I was going to say is that private partnership with the Pier. If any of y'all want to reach out to me, I work with a lot of airports, an AOP advocate, and we do a lot of private partnerships. I'll tell you that is the only time you can go out on a date, tell the date what you want, how you want it, and then tell them how long you want them to be around. Is about the easiest way to say how those work. You completely control it. Now, your dates can dump you prior to, but once you're in that is the one time you have a ton of power. So combined with that, I mean, you guys got like $10 to $15 million, and I'm on multiple state and county boards, and somebody throws that kind of money around, I would sit down and look at that. So, but anyways, thank y'all. Good to meet y'all. I swear I'm much nicer than I am on Facebook. So, but anyway, thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, careful.
Marty Airwood, 114 Shrimp Street. As I always say, here one more time, you're in the budget process. We need trash cans on the east end, please, please,
We got it.
and please.
We addressed it.
The other thing I want to say is to Mr. Evans and his staff. I don't know how many of you are on Facebook, but Miss Martha Myers put a very, very positive post on Facebook this week about the ADA compliance areas and just how appealing it was to the island. So I just wanted to bring that up and say, good job, Tim.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else want to speak about anything? Yes, sir.
Keith Smith, 105 Durham. The sidewalk issue, we actually, me and my daughters, we did a community service project last summer, and we started cleaning off the sidewalks. Now, we don't have sidewalk where we are, but we picked a section probably a little worse than what we were capable of managing, had a little bit more grass, and it took a lot of work, but we just took a section and cleaned it off, swept it off, pushed that's one thing that I noticed in walking around on the sidewalk stuff is the amount of rocks. I mean, it's not an easy fix. It's all the way up and down. But I think maybe we could tackle this as a community service project. Maybe Miss Maria's here. Maybe the homeowners association could maybe put out a referendum. Hey, a clean sidewalk. Give kudos, give yard signs or somebody that cleans the sidewalk up. And I know that there's a lot of people who love Holden Beach. They would be willing to donate their time to help clean up the sidewalks. I know our family would. Our girls love doing those kind of projects. And so that's something that instead of putting it from committee to committee to committee, maybe the subcommittee creates a volunteer committee and then they can hire or they can get other kids to help clean up and maybe a service project or something like that. But it is a lot of work. I mean, we spent a whole Saturday and we don't feel like we accomplished a whole lot, but it was fun and we got some good pictures and they got sore and sunburn and blisters. And so we were able to learn a lot of stuff about first aid too. So I'd like to say that. The second thing is, I saw Christy nod her head whenever Mr. Parfus talked about they got to come back to get a budget for the subcommittee. And that's one thing I'd like to note on. I loved the peer conversations that you guys had tonight. HDR came up here and just because of the amount of facts and figures and stuff, there was a lot of information. And you guys extrapolated a plan out of that. Like really a lot of information, and it could have went either way, and you guys kind of debated it back and forth, and there was a unified agreement. However, what I didn't hear was any funding for that. So I'm afraid, or what could happen is the same way as the subcommittee, you might give them direction, but if you don't get any money to do anything, sounds really good, but there's no way to accomplish what you've asked them to do. What quick proposal I'd like to see happen is reiterate or change the $90,000 that you already have budgeted, that you're already talking about now, increase that to a reasonable amount, maybe above 500,000 for this year. Then with next year's budget, a small portion, and then with money that we've already set aside in previous boards, along with the parking, you might be right at your budget amount and take it off in chunks. You don't have to worry about any kind of loans. You don't have to worry about any tax structures. You don't have, or tax increases, and you don't have to worry about any bond referendum. So I think you can bite off, like Mr. Park said, little chunks at a time with what you've already got and with the existing parking. Modify this year's budget, which might be hard, because from 90,000 to 500, that might be a stretch. Chrissy's already raising her eyebrows, but it's doable, I think. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak about anything? Last call. All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on to number 20, the mayor's comments are real brief. Hope everybody has a happy Easter and safe one. And Mr. Myers?
I'll same thing. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being involved. Thanks for getting engaged.
Mr. Smith?
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want them to be sure and enjoy this Easter season. We need to remember why we're celebrating Easter. It's a wonderful time of the year. The kids are on spring break and stuff. Please be careful as we go up and down the boulevard, because we're going to be back into the kids' season again, and they'll be out and about everywhere. So please be mindful. And I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners. I've got in me and I've dreaded coming in here tonight, but after our very sincere conversations and work tonight, I feel like that we've all got, for a change, a unified direction that we can go in and hopefully keep moving forward as we are. Because again, that this pier or a pier is, I think, important to Holden Beach's history as well as its future. Enjoy your Easter. Thank you.
Ms. Thomas?
I just wanted to share for the record that Lisa Ragland dropped her frivolous lawsuit last Friday because she knew that she was going to lose after she saw our attorney's motion to dismiss, which was scheduled to be heard at the same time on Monday as the preliminary hearing. She wasted thousands of taxpayers' dollars. All the work was done before the attorneys by the Friday before the court date. At best, she saved a few $100s. And she has publicly stated that she is going to continue to fight the town, which will require us to spend more of your taxpayer dollars on attorney fees. Again, just to reiterate, Lisa Ragland withdrew her frivolous lawsuit the day before the court date because she knew she had no chance of winning and cost the town thousands of dollars in attorney fees, with more to come if she continues to harass the town with this senseless allegations. I also wanted to say that Alan announced to the media that I think, quote unquote, I think eventually the cost of the pier is going to be put to the public for a potential referendum. I think that's a great idea, and we should plan on going down that path so that the voters and taxpayers get to make the decision instead of 5 people on whether or not they want to pay for the new pier. And I just wanted to thank Alan for publicly sharing that strategy, and I think it's a great idea. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Dr. Darn?
Yes, I'd like to make just a couple of points. We're getting a little bit closer and closer to the budget, June, and I think our interim town manager is doing an excellent job on working on this budget. And I think that proves that she's the best candidate for this job. And at last I checked on the website, still has not been posted. It says more information to come. I think we're wasting our time. She's working on this budget, and I think she should be able to continue to work with it, and I continue to strongly support her as the best candidate for town manager. A lot of people with the destruction of the Pier building, it was a sentimental thing for a lot of people. I know the building was in bad shape. I don't disagree that it needed to be demolished, but I wanted it demolished with a plan to replace it. I still think a private-public partnership is the best way to go with that. We never explored the options for that, of what we could do. I think we need to have something back for the public to enjoy. I'm glad HDR came in and that we had a productive conversation. My concern is if we don't have enough money to replace the pier, I don't know why the option to repair what's there is not there. I don't think we should tear down the pier if we don't replace it. We can't afford to replace it. I still think we have the option to repair it. We could also visit a private-public partnership for the pier as well. And I hope we move forward with the concert venue. It's been 2 years and it seems like every project's been stopped. And I think we need to move forward with a concert venue and give the people a place to enjoy the concerts this summer. Thank you for coming out.
Mr. Parfus?
I want to thank the staff for completing all the actions required by the ADA agreement. Staff has kind of handed some lemons and made some mighty fine lemonade. I strongly support and encourage the interim town manager to consider how we might recognize everybody that was involved in achieving this important accomplishment. It's a job well done. And last, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Easter.
Okay, we're on number 22, Mr. Myers and Ms.
Yes,
Thomas. Oh, I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
A little bit as a service announcement, we're coming up on a holiday, and a holiday is normally when the mamas in the family get all the children and everybody in the family around the table, and if something needs to be said, it's said. So the mama is going to take this opportunity to talk to all the children in this room and out there listening, and anybody you want to talk to tomorrow to share these ideas. And I'll be brief because it's been long and we've got several long minutes ahead. Back at the town's birthday party, I know that Mayor Pro Tem Myers was there, the mayor was there, Paige was there. If any of the rest of you were there and I'm missing you and calling you out, forgive me. But we did a little exercise where we said, what do you love about Holden Beach? And I've divided it into 2 things. I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to not focus on facilities environment. I'm going to focus on atmosphere. Some of the things that came off the page, the people and the kindness, the calm mood, friendliness, small town vibe, love and friendship, quiet family atmosphere, the town staff, wonderful staff that keeps the town running, safe environment, the community, the friendly police, engaged leadership. So right now, the community it's a minority, but it is very divided. And there are very divided things that are out online and very divided things that are in social media. let's focus and take the time to look at the very core of humanity. Be kind. Everybody just be kind. So instead of starting out your day, what can I do against they and them? Let's go, what can I do to make the town of Holden Beach better? And oh my goody goodness, what we might accomplish if we get out every day and open our eyes and say, what can I do to make the town of Holden Beach better? Instead of what are they and them might do to me today? What might they say about me today? What might they point their finger at me and want me to stand in the corner today? What can I do for the town of Holden Beach today so that we land in the papers for good things? My family had a house here, sold it when I was little. I have long ties to this beach. I want us to be able to give back to the people, the kindness, small town vibe, love, and friendship.
Thank you so much. Well said. All right. Mr.
Let's make a motion to go into
Discussion.
closed session.
I think Heather has to read something.
So you have to second.
I second it.
All right, Ms. Madam Clerk.
Closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3. Consult with the attorney to include potential litigation, and 143-318-11A6 personnel.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous. Thank you all for being here, and have a good evening.